They say she was beautiful.
I saw her once. I was a boy, living with your mother's family. Lord Went held a great tourney at Harrenhal. Everyone was there. The Mad King, your father, Robert Baratheon, and Lyanna. She was already promised to Robert. And you can imagine what it was like for me, a boy from nowhere, with nothing to his name, watching these legendary men tilting at the lists. The last two riders were Barristan Selmy and Rhaegar Targaryen. When Rhaegar won, everyone cheered for their prince. I remember the girls laughing when he took off his helmet and they saw that silver hair, how handsome he was. Until he rode right past his wife, Elia Martell, and all the smiles died. I've never seen so many people so quiet. He rode past his wife, and he lay a crown of winter roses in Lyanna's lap, blue as frost. How many tens of thousands had to die because Rhaegar chose your aunt?
Well met, limp-wristed kings and dwarf-beating Andals, and welcome to Game of Microphones. I'm Lord Stirling, Sir Duncan, Lord Commander of the Knights Rewatch.
Nice. And I'm Lady Rachel of House Fox, the Slayer of Spreadsheets.
And this is episode 86.
Yes. On this episode of our series Rewatch, we're covering Game of Thrones, Season 5, Episode 4, Sons of the Harpy.
And in case you're not already aware, this series Rewatch is from the perspective of someone who's current on the show. That means you've seen up through Season 7. If not, there's still time to be slaughtered by a mob of gold-masked Sons of the Harpy, so you don't have to hear these spoilers.
Warning.
Warning. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
What an episode.
Oh my god, there's so much happening in this episode. I'm going to switch it up on you this time and take number 5 for myself.
Do it. Okay, awesome.
Because I have something that is just kind of cool that I wanted to talk about. My number 5 is You Know Nothing, Jon Snow.
Okay,
and
this is my number 1.
Nice. Just specifically the Melisandre scene?
Just the Melisandre scene.
Okay, well, you can jump in when we get to that, because mine is more of the concept in general, and how this that line by Melisandre sort of exemplifies a theme that's been going through this entire episode.
Okay.
So basically, the general idea is that Jon Snow knows nothing. We all know that, right? But the most important thing that Jon Snow knows nothing about, which everybody else knows about themselves, you know, is their identity. Like, obviously, you know, you're Rachel. I know I'm Duncan. Everybody knows who they are except Jon Snow, and it's arguably the most important in his case because he's the heir to the Iron Throne and of royal lineage and everything. So there's a bunch of clues in this episode that there's more to Jon than meets the eye, much like a transformer. We get our first clue when Stannis and Selyse are talking, as they watch Jon training the Black Brothers. So Selyse is saying to Stannis that you think highly of this boy. And Stannis replies that, yeah, he's the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, you know? And Selyse is being a bitch, as usual, basically. And she's like, and a bastard by some tavern slut. So Stannis isn't having it, though. He sees through it, and he's like, perhaps, but that wasn't Ned Stark's way. And I saw this as being crucial foreshadowing to the reveal of Jon's true identity. And I just thought it was interesting that of all the people on the show, that Stannis is the one of the people that sees that there may be something else going on here. Because Stannis is like, he's a man of principle, right? And he knew that Ned was a man of principle. And so he's smart enough to know that there's something fishy about the official narrative of Jon's existence.
Yeah, I have a note here that this episode is Jon's slingshot into the conspiracy of him becoming or being a Targaryen, because we also see in this episode Littlefinger talking to Sansa in the crypts about Lyanna and Rhaegar. So I have this in my notes as well, as this is his kind of springboard, if you will, into taking the role of being a Targaryen. Yeah,
this is the first episode where they're really like shoving it in our faces that there's something more going on here. And it's interesting because Stannis like freaking barely knows Ned at all. You know what I mean? But even he knows more than Jon Snow, who knows nothing. He's like, I don't know if that's really the case, which is funny. So yeah, obviously it's Ygritte's catchphrase, and it alludes to all kinds of stuff. Like Ygritte, whenever she's using it, she's talking about how like, oh, Jon, you don't understand this or that. The way things work, you know, is typically what's being referred to when somebody says, you know nothing, Jon Snow. But the funniest part of it all is that he doesn't know anything about himself, and that's like the key issue. I think that every time that Ygritte says, "You know nothing, Jon Snow," or that this is brought up, is that it's really just alluding to the fact that Jon Snow doesn't know who he is. It's just one clue that there's a mystery surrounding Jon Snow, something that he's unaware of that's important. So I think that you know nothing, Jon Snow, as it applies to anything else, is sort of a red herring, distracting us from the thing that Jon really doesn't know about, which is the most important thing of all. So it's kind of cool.
And it's ironic because he does think he knows himself.
Right.
He has grown up as like this bastard, and he's worn this chip on his shoulder, and he knows that that's a sore spot with him. And so it's kind of a funny little conundrum that
yeah, exactly.
he really does know nothing
about
himself.
Yeah, his whole life is centered around his identity as a bastard, as the bastard of Winterfell, as being illegitimate and, you know, hated by Cat and everything like that. So it's just so like ironic and tragic that everybody knows who they are except Jon, who knows nothing about like the reality of the situation, because everything would change if Jon's identity was revealed. History would have been entirely different. So it's like the most important piece of information. It's just so funny. But yeah, every time you hear, you know nothing, Jon Snow, it's hinting to that fact that there's a mystery involving Jon Snow.
I like that.
Nice, thanks. So before Melisandre shows up here, we'll just finish talking about each of these little scenes as we go, if that's all right.
Sure.
So Selyse is lamenting over her failure to produce an heir for Stannis, a male heir.
Given you a son.
Yeah, and he's like, it's not your fault, you know. And she's like, I gave you nothing but weakness and deformity. And it's just horrible because she has all this angst pent up about poor little Shireen, you know, and she doesn't deserve to be hated like that. She's an amazing person and should be recognized for such, you know, like Martin Luther King said, people should be judged by the content of their character, not the scars on their face, basically. You know, that type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Melisandre approaches at that moment, and she's like, those scars mean nothing to the Lord of Light. You know, her father is the Lord's chosen king, and her father's blood runs through her veins. And it's cool because she's shutting down Selyse, right? And she's like sticking up for Shireen. It's like, yeah, she's pumping Shireen. She's got Shireen's back, you know? But that's a red herring to throw us off from the murder plot.
I was going to say that is totally not what's going on here, because they both exchange those looks of knowing that their plan is to sacrifice her by, you know, Melisandre saying those scars mean nothing to the Lord of Light. It's almost reassuring Selyse that they are making the right decision. And
That there's value in her blood.
yeah, it's not about her face. It's about her blood and her sacrifice
Exactly.
to propel Stannis to being the prince who was promised.
It's so funny. It's like, for the unknowing viewer, it's like, oh yeah, cool. Everybody, you know, she's standing up for her. Awesome.
Total double meaning.
Yeah, but really, it's like, we need her blood, you know?
We're going to murder her
Yeah, it's
like in an
great.
episode or two from now.
And Selyse is kind of like cowed by Melisandre kind of shutting her down here, and she runs off like Napoleon Dynamite, like shuffles off screen hilariously. So Melisandre is asking Stannis if they're marching on Winterfell, and he's like, yeah, we got to beat the snow, you know. And she's like, listen, you left me behind last time in favor of Sir Davos, and your whole fucking fleet got destroyed, so it's probably not a good idea to do that
You won't
this time.
make this mistake again.
Right, yeah. And he's like, I won't. And then he says, I need you. And it's like, whoa. Like, sexually? Is that what you're
I think
talking-
that's totally out of character for Stannis to say that he needs somebody.
Yeah. And
I
that's...
thought that was an interesting line for him.
Yeah, it's... She must be like, you know, working her manipulation on him somehow or something like that. But, it's just kind of funny because she shuts him down too, and she's like, you only need faith, my king, you know, which is just kind of funny. So then we move on, and Jon Snow's just beating people down basically the whole time down there.
Wait, before we go on, though, I love
Sure.
her. I love it when Stannis says to her, and you, my lady, what do you need? And she goes, to serve my lord. And the camera pans over to Jon,
Oh, true.
which foreshadows him becoming maybe like the actual chosen one that she's actually been in search of.
Right.
So I thought that
Like
was
serving the Lord of Light will have something to do with Jon. It's foreshadowing.
yeah, because she certainly feels something with him. You know,
Oh, yeah.
from a power perspective,
We'll
we'll get into later.
yeah, totally. Exactly.
But yeah, I just had to make that camera angle, that, you know, peering at Jon.
Yeah, the upward
from
shot as
above.
he's parrying. Oh, yeah. First, yeah, they're looking at him from above. Yep.
Yep. So I thought that was great cinematography.
Yeah, I agree. And Jon is just, he wields that sword like nobody's business. You know, it just flashes through the sky or through the air, just shivers through the air. It's
Yes,
awesome.
he does.
So Jon is then signing ravens to lords and ladies of the North.
Yes, this is such an awesome scene.
yeah.
Sam is great.
Oh yeah, it's so funny. And he's
Lord Ashford, Lady Coalfield, Lord Smallwood.
that's an unfortunate name, Smallwood.
Oh my god, I didn't even pick that up.
It's just, you know, brutal.
Yeah, got it.
So Lord Wibberley, that's a good name too. Yeah. Lord Wibberley.
More than Lord Wibbly.
And then Sam kind of like passes Jon a piece of parchment, and you can tell he's nervous about Jon's upcoming reaction. And Jon's like, "Not him." He's like, "I know, I'm sorry, but we need men and supplies, and Roose Bolton's the warden of the North, you know."
I love Sam. He's so nervous.
totally.
He's like, oh crap, he's gonna like try to slide it in, and Jon's like, no.
Yep. And so Jon is he's being put in the same position here that Sansa was put in last episode, being forced to be diplomatic towards Roose Bolton
Yes.
to achieve another purpose, which is kind of interesting. A good little parallel between the two. And so he resists at first. You know, he murdered
my brother. Yeah.
Yeah, and so Sam has to remind him, you know, we swore to be watchers on the wall. We can't watch the wall with 50 men, you know, and we can't get
He's so
more
good
men.
at persuading people to do things.
Yeah, he is. He definitely has a gift for that. Definitely, I agree. And so he points out, you know, we can't get more men without the help of the Warden of the North. He kind of facilitates the flow of that type of thing. And so he signs the parchment, throws down the quill, and slides
Pushes
the chair
himself back.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
a moment of exasperation. And it goes to show you again that Jon is like like Ned, as Aemon said. Oh, he must have been if that's true, then he was 1 in 10,000 men, you know. And it's a similar type thing with Jon, as he is a man of true integrity, in my opinion, as much, if not more so, than Ned. Because as I discussed last episode, comparing Jon to Alistair can't put aside his personal feelings to do what's right for the Watch and for his command. Just because it's Jon suggesting it, he refuses to seal the tunnel, and it results in the deaths of Gren and those other 5 guys down in the
other men of the Night's Watch.
Yeah. So, whereas Jon is able to put aside his differences to do what's important and what needs to be done for the benefit of his people that he's responsible for. And so he puts aside his differences with Roose Bolton here and does what needs to be done. He behaves in a diplomatic manner and humbly requests help, basically, as painful as it is for him to do so. So it just shows you that he's willing to do what it takes, even if it's hard and even if it sucks and if it's uncomfortable. And it's just something I admire about Jon Snow's character.
Definitely. I find it interesting too, because at a point in the future, Ramsay, I think he either says it to Sansa or to Reek, that Jon Snow's the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch now. And I always kind of wondered how Ramsay got that information. Like, I'm sure it gets around, but I think also this letter is what caused that knowledge to get there quicker than probably word of mouth did. Yeah,
good point. Good call. I forgot about that. So then the Red Woman enters. Lord Commander.
Bow, chicka, bow, wow.
How can I help you? Come with us as we ride south, she says. None of us know the castle as well as you do. Its hidden tunnels, its weaknesses, its people. And I like that type of thing, because hidden tunnels are like my favorite thing. Hidden passages and castles and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's I went to Oregon State, and there's catacombs under the campus. Yeah, that's cool. It's really cool.
I went in some tunnels underneath one of the old mental asylums in New Jersey. It was pretty cool.
Oh my god, I don't know about that.
They had the tunnels all decked out for like a haunted house thing. So you're going through the tunnels, and there's like clowns and all kinds of crazy stuff going on down there.
No, thank you.
In the catacombs. It was great. I can't remember what the asylum is right at this moment. I'm drawing a blank. But so Melisandre goes in there, and she's like, Winterfell was once your home. Don't you want to chase the rats out of it? I thought that was a great line. And he wants to, right? But
totally.
He can't, and you can see that he's slightly uncomfortable in her presence.
I think it's because she's a redhead.
Yeah, and he's like attracted to her potentially.
Yeah, because I think I said this last episode. He almost lost his virginity to Roz, who's a redhead.
Right, he loves.
He
his
fell
redheads.
in love with Ygritte, who's a redhead.
Him and Johnny Stitches.
Yeah, and. Now Melisandre is the Red Woman, and she's attractive, and he's like, oh my god.
Right. I think she also kind of creeps him out though. Like he gets
completely.
weirded out vibes.
Yeah, I mean, she's like looking at him like she wants to consume him.
Yeah, consume him. Yeah, perfect choice of words. It's just kind of funny watching him squirm a little bit. It's great, So he's like, Castle Black is my home now. The Night's Watch take no part in the wars of the Seven Kingdoms. And it kind of reminded me again of Sansa in season 1 when she's like just reciting those lines to Tyrion of what she needs to say. Like, my father was a traitor, I'm loyal to the king.
Traitor's blood.
Yeah. He's just saying what he needs to say. And it's just kind of funny. And she makes a very true statement. As fucked up and like horrible in some ways as Melisandre is, sacrificing Shireen and like doing all of these horrible Machiavellian slaughter of the individual for the benefit of the collective type things. Her goal is right in the end, at least. She says here, there's only one war, life against death. And we know that's true. We've seen Hard Home.
And I think Jon even knows it's true in this moment because he's seen the dead as well.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly.
Deep down, he knows that that's the true statement.
Right. So they as different as their methodology is for accomplishing the goal, their end game is the same. And I find that it's a similar parallel in with politics, that people get all up in arms fighting with each other over their ideas of how to accomplish goals. But in the end, whether you're on the right or the left or Republican or Democrat or liberal or conservative or libertarian or whatever, your goals are the same. You want people to be happy and free and wealthy and independent and successful,
Totally. I couldn't agree more.
Right. So it don't focus so much on the methodology and the goal's the same. The goal's the same, basically.
And that statement kind of plays true to when they all meet season 7, when they're all down in King's Landing. I mean, they're all on different sides of let's call it the political spectrum or the game board. And really what it comes down to is we really should just put all of our differences aside because it really doesn't fucking matter how we get there. The fact of the matter is that we have an army of dead people marching on the wall and we're all going to fucking die if we don't do something about it. So stop fighting between each other and let's collaborate. We may not get along all the time, but we have to respect each other.
Right. And we should love each other. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more with that sentiment.
Nice. Yeah. So I'm like, ain't that the truth? There is only one war that matters. So she's like, come, let me show what you're fighting for. He's like, you're going to show me some vision in the fire? Forgive me, my lady. I don't trust in visions. No visions. No magic. And I'm like, lies! It's a glamour. It is magic.
Your perfect tits are a lie.
Totally. Just life. And she opens her what is that, a blouse, a dress? I don't know.
A robe.
She opens her robe thing and grabs his hand and pulls it to her naked waist. And entranced, he starts reaching upwards to her breast and cups it. And she's like, do you feel my heart beating? He's like, oh, and he's like totally tranced out, he is like in a trance if you look at him.
Yeah, he's like boobies.
Yeah. Oh, like the treasure chest just opened and you see all the glimmering, the golden blinded reflection. Yeah, exactly. And so she goes on, there's power in you. And this is a very important line. It's another clue that there's more going on than meets the eye with Jon Snow. Transformers! The only men we've seen her seduce, or try to seduce, have had king's blood. First of all, Stannis, and they produce a shadow baby. And then Gendry, she gets him down on a bed, goes through the whole seduction thing with him as well.
She actually kind of does him for a little bit too.
Maybe. And then she attempts it here with Jon. And there's sort of a coded message here. There's power in you. And another quote from Melisandre is, there's power in king's blood.
Yep, so I wrote this down too.
Yeah, so if you put those two lines together, as if they were a math equation, for instance, y plus 2 equals x. There's power in you. Y plus 2 is there's power in both equations, and x would be you, Jon Snow, and king's blood. So x equals both Jon Snow and king's blood.
And king's blood.
Right.
Yep.
So it's a coded hint that Jon and king's blood are related, that they're the same thing. So it's another really cool hint to Jon's true lineage in this episode. And this is where she fucks up and kind of goes like Sith Lord sort of on Jon, Feel your hate, Luke. Use it.
You resist it.
Yeah.
And that's your mistake.
Exactly. His power.
It.
The power, Emperor Palpatine, power. And embrace it, and he kind of snaps out of it at that moment, and he's like, wait a second, I don't want to.
Pulls his hand away really fast.
Yeah, jerks his hand back, and his whole facial expression changes, and those lines sort of like snapped him out of his trance and made him wary of what she was saying. And again, here, Jon is 1 in 10,000 men. Like, who else could possibly resist her in this situation?
Yeah.
And his retraction of his hand and stuff makes her escalate her tactics. So she moves in closer and sits on his lap and starts getting like really sexual about it, like the Lord of Light made us male and female, 2 parts of a greater whole. In our joining there's power to make life, power to make light, and power to cast shadows.
I thought that last part was interesting.
Why?
The power to cast shadows. I took it as she is calling herself out, that she influences others by using the Lord of Light.
That's a great way to look at it. That's really cool. Yeah, using the Lord of Light, casting shadows and creating the shapes of the shadows, like and however you choose.
Allegory of the cave kind of shit.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. Yeah, that's like the
brilliant. Masters behind the glamour, they're projecting that perception of reality. She's projecting this perception that the Lord of Light is the one true God.
Yeah, they design the shape of the shadows.
Yeah, so she decides what to bring about and what to keep to herself. And we know that from the bath scene with her and Selyse, like, she has an arsenal of potions that she uses to manipulate reality, which essentially, I mean, if you look at it from the allegory of the cave perspective, that's exactly what's going on, is people are manipulating other people's reality by using casted shadows.
Totally. That's amazing. I like that. Great pull there. So good. And the other hint here is the, relating to the shadow demon, of course, as well.
Oh,
of course,
yeah.
Which,
you know what? I didn't even make that one. That's
the more obvious of the two, but yours is like so cool. More, nuanced and philosophical.
I totally went to like Plato and not the shadow baby.
Yeah, it's great because I mean, I bet it wouldn't surprise me if George was like thinking on both of these levels as well. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Which is what makes the writing so good, how it can be interpreted in so many different ways like this. But yeah, she has sex with Stannis, creates the shadow demon, and I'm wondering if she thinks that something similar could happen here, that she could have sex with Jon here, and it could give her the power to forge within her womb another shadow demon to send into Winterfell.
Yeah. I was wondering that too, because we know that her purpose with Gendry was not to like have complete sex. She like got him all aroused and then she leeched him. She just wanted his blood, but
she wanted to kill him first. Leeching him was like the compromise.
Yeah, totally. But Jon, I think she's looking to produce another shadow baby with.
She totally is. Yeah, power to make life.
And to cast shadows, to your point, she's gonna birth another shadow.
Yeah, exactly. Super, super intense. And she's basically telling us here, if her intent is to cast a shadow, to create a shadow demon, that means Jon has king's blood. That's what that means. They're basically telling us here, Jon has king's blood in semi-coded language again.
Definitely.
Which is awesome. I just fucking love this shit. And it's so cool, man. Yeah, because, only Stannis could help her make a shadow demon before because of his king's blood.
He's a Baratheon.
Yeah, his rich king's blood, basically. So Jon is desperately trying to resist as she's sitting on his lap and like face to face with him. And he tries one tactic first. He's like, I don't think Stannis would like that very much, And
she's like, then don't tell him.
Then we shouldn't tell him, right? So I'm like, cheating bitch. This is another thing that would make Jon reluctant because it's not honorable to cheat with go behind Stannis's back like this, right?
Sure.
She's telling him to go against his instincts, to use his power, to go behind Stannis's back, and next to try to break his vows, so he switches tactics here after she switches that one on him. And he's like, I can't, why? I swore a vow You know, and her look, she's just like, really? That's what you're going with? Like, she calls bullshit on it, you know, with like her facial expression.
For sure.
Yeah. So his tactics change again, and he's like going through a list of excuses. He's like, I loved another. And she flips it on him again. I still love her.
Yeah. Get off me.
The dead don't need lovers, only the living. And he's like, I know, but I still love her. And she like still is trying to like do her thing, and he like grabs her arms and like throws him down, and like basically is like, get the fuck off me, you know? And she gets shut down, which is unusual for her, I imagine. She must not have brought enough of her, she probably expected she didn't need any like special potions or shit like that for Jon. She was so wrong. Damn.
Very wrong. Yeah, so he's got a wall up for sure. No pun intended, being that he's at the wall. Yep.
So she shut down, and she like gets up, you know, strings up her robe again, and starts walking towards the door, like a little bit sulking, kind of, you know. But then she turns around at him, and this is when she throws out the line at him. You know nothing, Jon Snow. And then sort of like
he's like, oh!
Right, and she sort of like smugly grins, like knowingly, like, I know what I just said. That's right, and walks out. Do you think
she's maybe seen them in a vision together before?
Probably,
because
yeah.
Like, I mean, I loved what you said earlier about her basically telling Jon, like, you know, you don't know anything about yourself because you don't know that you're a Targaryen, essentially.
Right,
but. To use those exact words.
Oh yeah, it's a triple entendre or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
there was fire raging all around them when Ygritte died at the battle at Castle Black. You know, she could have seen through any of those flames.
Yeah, him rocking her. Yeah.
Campfires north of the wall. You know.
Okay.
There's ample opportunity where like.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like. How did she know to say those exact words?
Yeah, she knew. You know, this was not a coincidence. Just talking about Jon's lineage, like this is an Ygritte reference. You know, especially since the last thing Jon said was talking about Ygritte. You know, I still love her. But it's a great double entendre because she's also talking about how she was just trying to extract his king's essence from him and use him for his power, and he's completely clueless to that. She's like, you know nothing, Jon Snow. Like,
yeah.
You know, like, you don't even know who you are. I know more than you. I'm trying to use you for I was gonna say the goo, but that's not right. For the blood, the king's blood, you know. So it's just kind of funny that we're basically told as plainly as possible here that she was trying to have sex with him to create a shadow demon, and that's because he has king's blood. Telegraphed to the T. And yeah, the look and shock and confusion on his face when she says that is just fucking priceless.
I know. It gives you kind of like he had to have gotten like goosebumps. Like, am I looking at her like reincarnated? What the fuck?
Right, like what is going on here? Nobody's ever said that to Jon Snow before, you know? It's
not other than Ygritte.
Catchphrase.
Yeah.
Yeah, so terrifying. If he wasn't creeped out by her beforehand, he knows that there's like some kind of mystical shit going on with her now that's got to have his, the hair on the back of his neck standing up.
For sure.
Yeah. So, she's obviously like like much in the way that Ygritte would use it. You know, she'd be criticizing Jon for his lack of understanding for something. You know, so Melisandre's criticizing him here for behavior that she considers irrational. Like, you know nothing, Jon Snow. Yeah, resisting, staying loyal to like a dead person who doesn't need your love anymore. But at the same time, she's telling him, like, you know nothing. I'm trying to extract your essence because you have king's blood and you're fucking clueless to this entire reality. You don't even know who you are. And so she walks out, and then Jon is just sitting there like in shock, wide-eyed after that, which is pretty intense. So
for sure.
Moving on, we got Sansa lighting a candle in the crypt of Winterfell, which
is this still your number 5?
Yeah, we can collaborate on this part.
Okay, because this is my number 5 too.
Okay, so how about you go ahead with it, and I'll jump in if there's anything that I want to mention in there as well.
Sure. Yeah. So I love this scene. I almost put this as my number one because it's one of my favorite scenes in the series.
Yeah.
And she's down in the crypts, and I really feel in this moment she's reflecting and soaking in the nostalgia of being back home. Because when we first meet Sansa, she cannot wait to get the hell out of Dodge.
Right. King's Landing sounds wonderful.
Yeah, she wants to get the heck out of here. She's lived... I always kind of picture it as like someone living in like the rural country and having dreams and aspirations to go to like New York City and living the dream there, and then realizing it's not all the glitz and glam that it's made out to be. And they go home, and there's something about going to the woods, and it's quiet and it's peaceful and it's beautiful. And you always love home more if you've moved away and come back.
Right.
Essentially.
You take it for granted while you're there, you know?
Yeah.
And then you realize how much you miss it when it's gone. Like anything else, you know, like without pain, you wouldn't feel joy type thing. Without being
For
away,
sure.
you wouldn't feel, you know, the nostalgia for home or the value necessarily.
Yeah, so I think she's kind of feeling this right now because she wanted to get the heck out of there. Now that she's back, she's wandering around. She's lighting a candle for her father. She's lighting a candle for her aunt.
I like how she like dumped the wax onto the hand and then stuck it in there to make it stand up. That's cool.
Really cool. I think she just appreciates her family more than before. And I think at this point in the series, she feels more like a Stark than ever before.
Yeah.
She
Sure.
always wanted to be somebody else. She wanted to be the queen. She wanted to be, you know, Joffrey
Southern lady.
Baratheon's wife. She wanted to, you know, wear her hair like the Southerners. And
Right.
I noticed that her
Exactly.
hair was more done up like the Northern girls. Like she's re-entering that.
She's embracing her roots.
Exactly. And she finds the feather that Robert laid in Lyanna's hand when he was down in the crypts with Ned.
In the pilot episode, yeah, I think it was really cool that they reincorporated that little feather into the picture.
I loved it. I thought it was so awesome because when we cue Littlefinger just right after this, you know, he talks about basically Lyanna was the catalyst of Robert's rebellion.
Yeah, this is the most critical story in the whole show.
Yes.
Like, hands down.
So Baelish enters and he goes, I thought I might find you here. And they're looking at Lyanna's statue and your Aunt Lyanna. And Sansa's like, you know, Father never talked about her. Sometimes I'd find him down here lighting the candles. They say she was beautiful. And we get Littlefinger's amazing kind of monologue here. This is one of my favorite monologues that he does. Not in the fact that it's just super important from the show perspective, but his delivery of it is just totally 100% Littlefinger. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
It's so I saw her once. I was a boy. I was living with your mother's family. And, you know, they went to a tourney in Harrenhal, which I found funny because he ends up being Lord of Harrenhal, you know, earlier in the...
Oh, yeah, true.
You know, everyone of importance was there, essentially. The Mad King, you know, Barristan Selmy, who else? The Robert Baratheon,
Kingslayer.
your father. Yeah. And at this point, Lyanna was already promised to Robert. So I loved his sentiment too. Like, you could imagine what it was like for like a little boy like me who's from the Fingers.
A boy from nowhere with nothing to his name, watching
Yes.
these legendary men tilting at the lists.
And then we come to find out the last two writers were Barristan Selmy and Rhaegar Targaryen. And I love that being that this is Barristan Selmy's last episode.
Oh, it kind of foreshadows his death, that he loses this fight.
Like,
oh, man, that's
that he
fucked.
lost this, and then he ends up losing at the end of the episodes.
Oh.
I know, Batman. We'll get to Batman, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But, you know, Rhaegar won. Everyone cheered for their prince. He had that amazing silver hair. He was really good looking.
He pulled off his helm and all the ladies started giggling.
Ovaries swelled across the land.
Yeah. Exactly.
And, you know, I found it funny that Sansa says, you know, her aunt was beautiful, and Baelish says how handsome Rhaegar Targaryen was, and they created Jon Snow. So, just going to throw that out there. And then this is when his monologue gets a little dark.
Yeah, the girl's laughing and everything until...
He rode right past his wife, Elia Martell, and all the smiles died.
Yeah.
And I like how he says Elia Martell, because from a first-time viewer, the story is a little out of place from the perspective of character development. And, you know, we've only really ever seen Barristan Selmy and Robert Baratheon and Ned Stark, who are mentioned in this monologue. So the other players are really just, from a first-time viewer, we don't really understand their major importance.
Totally.
And so I remember the first time watching this, it connected with me that Elia Martell was married to Rhaegar Targaryen.
Right, because we just had her name pounded into our heads a few episodes ago. Elia Martell, say her name, you know?
Exactly. So that was a huge, like, show connector for me as a first-time viewer. Like, oh, okay, this all makes sense now.
Right.
Like, he was married, and he loved Lyanna, so it all kind of, like, clicked together for me.
Yeah. So everybody's happy until he rides past her, and all the smiles died. And like you were just going to say, he's never seen so many people so quiet. That image is just so intense, you know. He
rode past his wife and lay a crown of winter roses in Lyanna's lap.
Yep, blue as frost.
Oh, I love that. You know, how many tens of thousands of had to die because Rhaegar chose your aunt. And I thought this was such, I mean, talk about a red herring that comes to fruition in season 7. The fact that he laid a crown of roses in her lap.
Oh, really, a crown.
A crown, okay. Yeah. A crown of winter roses because she's from the north, blue as frost. Why, if he chose her, why would he rape her?
Right.
You know, because we came to find out in this episode as well what a nice man Rhaegar Targaryen was.
Right, and that's
Barristan
more hints.
Gives that story of him going down and singing with the common people and
being
doing
so
it for money, but giving it away. And he wanted to interact with his people. And so this whole, to Sansa's point, yeah, he chose her, but then he kidnapped her and raped her. That does not make any sense from what we know about Rhaegar Targaryen up to this point.
And did you see Peter Baelish's face contort? Like, you really believe that?
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting because I was like, oh, has Peter Baelish put 2 and 2 together and figured out who Jon really is, maybe? Because that
maybe not who Jon is, but maybe that they were having an affair.
Right, but think about it. They have an affair, they disappear, they're both killed, and then all of a sudden Ned comes back with Jon. I don't think it's beyond Littlefinger's intellectual capacity to put 2 and 2 together out here and like figure out that Jon was the result of that.
And maybe that's why he came to help during the Battle of the Bastards too. I mean, Sansa thinks that they came for her, but maybe Baelish was coming for Jon Snow too.
Maybe to meet him and to like size him up, and it's just interesting. And he chooses not to expound on this. Like, he looks at her like, you really believe that? But he doesn't bring it up. He lets her go on believing that Lyanna was raped and kidnapped. And I was just like, it's really interesting. For whatever reason, he doesn't press the issue. Maybe he just likes having a one-up on her. Like, knowledge is power, and he knows something she doesn't.
I think that's a little bit more Littlefinger-ish.
Yeah, and then I was wondering too, like, so was the Rhaegar abducted and raped Lyanna lie perpetuated by Ned to prevent Robert from finding out that Jon was conceived in love and legitimately named a Targaryen?
I think so, because if she wasn't kidnapped and raped, then Robert would have probably figured out that they were having an affair with each other because of this story that Baelish just told Sansa.
Like, apparently it seems like at the time when Robert's rebellion began, they were under the impression that she was abducted and raped. And that's like kind of one of the reasons.
Robert was, or Robert and Ned?
I think that Robert was, at least, but it also could have been Robert just wanting to rationalize Lyanna like leaving, essentially. You know, it may have been like a defense mechanism, like, oh, she must have been kidnapped, you know, type thing. Like, she wouldn't abandon me, you know, or whatever. But,
prideful thing.
Yeah, either way, even though Ned knows the truth and knows Jon's real name, when he comes back with Jon, he perpetuates the lie and doesn't obviously spread the information that they were married and that Jon is legitimate. So it's just kind of interesting. I'm wondering where that theory originally came from.
Yeah, me too. I would love to hear about that more, of where that all stemmed. And maybe him and Howland Reed decided that was the best story to tell in order to keep Jon's identity truly safe.
Hidden. Yeah, maybe all they knew was that Lyanna was gone. Maybe nobody knew what the deal was before that. You know, I don't know. It's interesting. Worth mentioning, since we're talking about this scene also, is and the mention of winter roses, is that Lyanna had a particular affinity for winter roses, and I think that she was clutching a bouquet of winter roses as she died.
Oh, interesting.
But there's also she's referred to as a winter rose in the books repeatedly, and there's a lot of symbolism with winter roses and Lyanna and Jon. Even
cool.
with like a winter rose growing out of the wall, like a chink in the ice wall at one point and everything.
Oh, crazy.
You know, like
That's
cool little
cool
stuff. Clues to Jon's identity and being related to Lyanna in a close way. So yeah, it's just really interesting and just such a crazy story. Like the tourney of Harrenhal is just critical, pivotal moment.
Definitely.
Oh, and I liked what you said about the talking about laying a crown of the winter roses in Lyanna's lap, because it's essentially another telegraph that he actually did like give her a crown in a manner by marrying her.
That's true. Yep.
You know.
So this was like the symbolic crown for their secret marriage.
Yes, that's so cool.
Do you think maybe they were already married at this point?
I doubt it. I think that this is when he caught her eye. He had been studying like the prophecy of the prince that was promised and stuff like that. And at first he had thought that he was the prince that was promised. And as things progressed in his life, he came to believe that his son would be the prince that was promised. And for some reason, he must have decided that it was not one of his children with Elia, and he seems to be like strongly driven by prophecy. Interestingly, sort of like Melisandre, kind of.
Sure, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So
I found it interesting that Sansa says in this scene, she goes, and then he kidnapped her and raped her, and sadly, I think Sansa's the next person to get raped in the series. So really that was kind of a little. Like 2 episodes from now. 2 episodes, yeah. Something so like I just kind of made that note that she was disgusted by that, and sadly that happens to her a couple episodes later. Yeah, pretty brutal. So Peter has a funny line, "Come, let's speak somewhere the dead can't hear us," which I thought was funny. And she realizes that he's dressed for riding, and she's like, "What the fuck? Like, you're leaving me here?" He's like, "Yeah, King's Landing, Cersei sent for me." So that confirms what you had theorized last episode, that the Raven from Cersei was summoning him to court. Yeah, because back in that episode too, she said, make sure that Lord Peter Baelish understands the word immediately. Right, yeah, that was kind of the clue, definitely. So at this point, Baelish goes into his like chess geniosity. He's a master at this. He's figured out Stannis's whole plan and knows he's going to come and try to take Winterfell, and that he'll be able to save Sansa, and that he'll name her
wardeness of the North and everything. And it's just like such a brilliant strategist. As despicable and horrible as Baelish is, he's really good at like political strategy. And
he's one of the best chess players for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think he figured it out because, I mean, he does have his little birds, not as many birds as Varys, but he has his little birds around town too. So I'm sure he was aware that Stannis moved his army up to Castle Black to help, defend the wall. And maybe he does or does not know the reason why. But I think he realizes that...
You mean about like the White Walkers and stuff?
I think they were just, defending from a big band of wildlings and they needed help and Stannis came to help. But I don't think Peter Baelish really believes in the White Walkers just yet,
Probably.
if ever. But I was wondering when I was taking my notes does Baelish really know that Stannis was at the wall when he sent for the marriage proposal to the Boltons for Sansa?
Oh, like that was his way of putting Sansa at Winterfell so Stannis could name her wardeness?
Yes. And like he knew kind of deep down, or like that she would maybe have to marry the Bolton boy for a really short amount of time, but won't be stuck with the Boltons long.
Yeah, that's
which
it,
is why
exactly.
he felt okay sending her up there and saying to her, like, avenge your family. Right. Basically, like telling her, you're not going to be up there very long because Stannis is going to come down and kick Bolton's ass and name you Wardeness of the North. And then I think in his mind, he's like, and I'm going to marry you and I'm going to rule the North in your name and the Eyrie.
Right. And I'm going to kiss you now.
And I have that in my notes.
The groundwork.
She lets him kiss her.
Yeah, he pauses, like as he goes in, he pauses and gives her a chance to retract or stop it. And she doesn't. No. It's probably like a political move on her part to manipulate him.
Yeah, I think they're both trying to manipulate each other. I think I think Littlefinger is kissing her to try to get her to start having feelings for him. Mm-hmm. And I think Sansa is letting him think that because she knows it's never going to happen.
Right, yeah. And so that he'll keep working for her and doing stuff for her.
Exactly. Hilarious. So I think they're both playing each other right now.
Yep, it's so funny. So this is Baelish's first major miscalculation, thinking that Stannis will defeat the Boltons, which doesn't happen. And Sansa, I mean, she's already like basically gone when she's escaping as the battle's going on, I think, or something. But I mean, she meets an unfortunate she meets with unfortunate circumstances before Stannis even gets there. So everything goes wrong with his plan, basically, and it ends up...
that's why I don't think he had Ramsay in his sights of being a crazy person. I think he thought Sansa would just have to grit and bear it. She's going to have to lose her virginity. She's going to have to get married. It's the way the world is in this realm. And, she's going to have to just... He says, take this Bolton boy as your own. I don't think he realized how beaten and abused she was going to be in that short amount of time he was thinking she was going to be with him. Yeah,
exactly. Just pretty crazy. So he totally fucks up here. He's a betting man, but he bets wrong this time, and it plants the seeds that lead to his death, because the way that he leaves her here with Ramsay...
It's abandonment.
Yeah, and she is not stoked about it. She's really fucking mad about it, and she gets her revenge, basically. Like, as soon as he gives her a reason, she fucking has his throat slit.
Yep.
So yeah, crazy. He's like, I'll return before too long. You'll be strong without me. And he places his hands on her shoulders, and then he places his hand on the back of her head, and and moves in to kiss her, and she doesn't stop him. Hilarious.
Kind of weird. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the North will be yours. Do you believe me? You know, and she's like, I expect I'll be a married woman by the time you return.
I like his sentiment too when he says, and you've learned to maneuver from the very best. From the
very best, yes.
He's giving himself a pat on the back here, but I had a glimmer of she also learned from Cersei.
Yep.
Because we know this in season 7 when she said, I learned a great deal from her. So I think he's thinking, oh, she's learned how to maneuver, you know, slimy people, but through me. But I think Cersei's in her mind too, playing Littlefinger, and he doesn't even know it. Totally.
Yeah, great call. And it's just funny, so humble of him, you know, the very best he refers to himself as, and his hubris here and thinking that he's got the perfect plan and making all the right bets ends up being his downfall. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Sansa is his Achilles heel.
Yep, totally. Or yeah, the Stark women in general, I guess. Or at least, you know, Kat and Sansa.
Redheads. What is it about redheads this episode?
Yeah, totally. So yeah, that pretty much wraps up both of our number 5s, right?
That was my number 5 and my number 1 and your number 5. So what's your number 4?
My number 4 is Jaime and Bronn, which was just kind of funny.
Okay, awesome. Being captured or
just their whole little storyline and their interactions together. So it starts off with Tyrion getting beat on a boat by Jorah, basically, and then it cuts to Jaime on a boat, which I thought was a cool transition.
Yeah, definitely.
He's looking off the port side, I think it is, and looking at an island, and he's like, "Is that Estamont?" "Tarth, Sir Jaime, the Sapphire Isle." And it brings back memories of Brienne for him.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, like obviously makes him think about the name, the Sapphire Isle, and how he misconstrued its meaning to Locke, but it's really about like the water around it and everything. But he sort of gazes longingly in wonder, imagining what Tarth is like and thinking about Brienne and probably wondering how she's faring on her journey with Oathkeeper and the armor that he gave her, and just kind of a fun way to create another little, like a reason for him to think about her and another little connection between the two of them. Like he's seeing her homeland, her home, you know, and makes him think of her. It's just kind of cool.
Sure.
So then it's there's a great transition where Bronn hurls his kukri into a sack of grain, and his kukri is that type of blade that he uses.
The blade,
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Jaime kind of like watches it fly by and then watches as the grain is spilling out, and he's got this this look sort of on his face. It's like wonder and confusion.
You can
and
tell
like,
Bronn is bored.
Yeah, and he's also like, he's pretty good with that fucking blade. I don't think I would. That blade kind of freaks me out, I think. You know, it's a little freaked out by it, kind of maybe. Which comes back later when he wakes up and Bronn has the kukri raised over his head. It looks like he's about to throw it at Jaime, and
oh yeah, he's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, he's like, oh god, and like kind of like jumps to the side, but he's probably remembering him throwing that blade into the bag beforehand and how good he is with it. So he's like, oh shit, it's happening to me now, you know?
Yeah, I don't think anyone would want to wake up to that.
Yeah, pretty awesome. So there's a little bit of exposition here for the viewers, explaining why they're on a merchant ship instead of traveling with the sigil out, you know, and obviously they're going there in secret to infiltrate. Dumbest plan ever, as we know.
Yes.
Backfires royally. So the ship is traveling to Old Town, and they're gonna like set off in the middle of the night to get to Dorne.
They're gonna row to Dorne.
Yeah, well,
at night.
Well, at least Bronn's gonna row. And he's like, "Have you ever been to Dorne?" And he's saying to Jaime, and he's like, "No." And he's like, "I have."
The Dornish are crazy.
Yeah. All they want to do is fight and fuck and fight. And I like Jaime's response. You should be happy to go back, you know, because that's what Bronn's into.
This
right?
is like what you are. Are you Dornish, Bronn?
Yeah. And he's like, well, I kind of think we're going to end up doing all the fighting and then have to leave before the fucking. So, you know, it kind of leaves out half the fun.
Because we have to kidnap a princess.
Right. Yeah. It's pretty great.
Way to be a cock block, Jaime.
Yeah. It's like, well, you know, we're not just kidnapping a princess either. We're rescuing my niece, bringing her back to her family. And Bronn is
Your
like,
niece?
your niece? Yeah. And Jaime looks up at first like he's going to say something like, take it back. But then he sees how like confident Bronn is with his assertion here. Like by asking your niece, he's saying your daughter, you know? And he's like, I know the fucking truth, man. Like looking at him. And instead of Jaime pressing the issue, he totally backs down. Doesn't even try to argue against it. It seems like he's okay with Bronn knowing, and from a strategic point of view, he probably thinks that Bronn knowing the truth may be advantageous for the mission. Bronn knowing how important it is to Jaime, like what the stakes are.
So I think not saying anything spoke 1,000 words to Bronn.
Absolutely, and he may suspect that Bronn could know the truth from Tyrion also, because his opinion of Tyrion isn't the greatest right now. So he's probably thinking like, oh, he's probably divulging all of our secrets, you know, and shit like that. Who knows,
True, but
right?
it's a secret in the fact that no one can really confirm it 100%.
Right. It's
but
an
it
open
seems
secret.
it's common knowledge that. Yeah. I mean, the kids are likely Jaime's.
Right. Yeah, it's an open secret.
I mean, anyone on the street could have said that to Jaime, but I think Jaime would have shut them down.
Right.
Whereas Bronn, he's just not going to... Basically, he's pleading no contest.
Yeah. Bronn knows all his most damning secrets, like the fact that he can't fight anymore. You know,
exactly.
Also.
And to this part, you know... He's pretty much kept his word to Jaime. So I think Jaime is uneasy that he knows the truth, which is why he doesn't confirm it 100%. But he also is strangely okay with Bronn knowing.
Right, yeah.
Without being told 100%.
I would agree. So he's like, I've been doing this sort of thing a long time. I'm good at it. And Jaime's like, that's why you're here. You know, it's like, but why are you here? Why not just send 40 of me or an army? Unlike most folks, you've actually got an army, you know, and I just thought that was super hardcore. Like, who has an army, you know? Jaime Lannister. That's fucking badass.
Unlike most folks, you actually got one.
Yeah. So he's like, well, because I don't want to start a war, you know, like I'm not sending an army because we don't want a war here. It's like, it still doesn't explain why you're like what you're doing here, you know. And he says it has to be me, you know. And after the last thing, like suggesting that Myrcella is his daughter, you know, by saying it has to be me, Jaime's kind of saying like, well, I'm her fucking dad, you know, I kind of need to protect her, but also Cersei's kind of making me.
Yeah, I'm never going to get into her pants again if I don't do this mission. So
right.
Here I am, a one-handed man in Dorne.
We talked last episode about using psychology to manipulate people, like you were talking about using reverse psychology on your 2-year-old, making people think that they're making their own decisions when in fact you're manipulating them into making their decisions. So that I feel like that's kind of like what Cersei did to Jaime here. She sort of manipulated him into saying that he would go save Myrcella. Like, you've never done anything to be a father to our children. He's like, fine, I'll go fucking save her, you know, I'll do it.
And I also think she wanted him out of King's Landing so she could stack the small council without being judged by Jaime or being told not to do something.
As we see happening in this episode when she removes Mace Tyrell from the picture and gets called out by Pycelle.
Yep.
Classically. So Bronn's like, if I'm putting something like this together, a one-handed man who happens to be one of the most recognizable faces in Westeros, it's like not the most stealth option, and Jaime's like, it has to be me.
I think that really confirms for Bronn that Jaime is Myrcella's father.
Right.
Like he says it a second time.
Right. Like,
and then that kind of seals the deal. Exactly.
And so Bronn is just like in total like digging for truth mode here. Moves on from learning that Jaime is the father of the kids, of the royal kid, quote unquote royal kids, you know, to then asking Jaime
the royal
about
bastards.
Yeah. To actually, yeah, I guess they'd be royal bastards, kind of. So he moves on to asking about freeing Tyrion, and he's like, "You set your brother free, didn't you? I'll bet your sister didn't like that." And this seems to like trigger the whole like Cersei thing and her reaction. Look at the consequences. Look at the consequences. Father's dead, you know.
Definitely.
And so he still kind of lies about this. Varys set him free. And I like Bronn's line. He loves Tyrion. And he's like, well, if you see the wee fucker, give him my regards. And Jaime, fresh off thinking about Cersei shaming him for letting him go, he's like, kind of stewing. He's like, he murdered my father. You know, if I ever see him again, I'll split him in two. And Bronn, who knows everything in this scene. He knows Jaime let Tyrion go. He knows that Jaime's the father of the royal bastards. You know, he knows everything in this scene that's going on. But he seems genuinely surprised by Jaime's reaction here, saying that he'll split Tyrion in two. He looks shocked, sitting there, and sort of in the way that Jon is shocked when Melisandre says, you know, nothing, Jon Snow, and walks out, and he just kind of sits there in shock. Yeah, sort of the same thing. Jaime's like, if I ever see him, I'll split him in two, and then I'll give him your regards. And Bronn's just like, oh shit, you know, like what the fuck. I
like that Jaime uses Varys as a scapegoat here, because if Varys hadn't have left King's Landing, I don't think he would have been able to do that. Right,
totally. Yeah, he might have gotten busted.
Just put the blame on Varys, saying Varys set Tyrion free. Jaime, I think, was fully ready to take responsibility for that to his father, but then Tyrion killed Tywin, and it sent him for a loop, so he's using Varys as a scapegoat to say I had nothing to do with it, basically.
Totally. Yeah, good call. So then we move on to the next scene where they swim ashore or row ashore, and Bronn's rowing in the darkness and looks to Jaime for help, and he just kind of raises his hand like, sorry, bro. You know? Bronn's like, fuck.
How can I row? I have one hand.
Yeah. So then they go to sleep, and there's a beautiful shot of this beach and the sun rising over it. And it's just a gorgeous moment of cinematography. And then Jaime wakes up to Bronn about to throw the kukri at his head, or so he thinks, hilariously. And Bronn ends up throwing it into a snake, which they eat for breakfast, which is funny.
Yeah. That would have been a shit way to die.
Yeah, that would have been a shit way to die for sure.
Which I find interesting because we meet the sand snakes in this episode.
Yes, that is good. Good point, yeah.
And the sand snakes try to kill them.
Yeah, totally. This part's cool too, talking about ways to die, and Jaime asks Bronn how he would want to die. And Bronn sort of had this conversation with Tyrion earlier in this series, so he's been thinking about it a little bit. Remember, what did Tyrion say? Old age with a woman's mouth around my cock.
Yeah, drunk.
Right. So that sort of influenced Bronn, because Bronn is sort of envisioning the same type of scenario in his own keep, drinking his own wine, watching his own sons grovel for his fortune. And I desperately want Bronn to get his castle. You know.
Me too.
That's all I want, but it's not going to happen, because this is Gurm's way of telling us it ain't gonna happen, you know, picturing dying in his own keep with his own wine, with his sons and his fortune. That means now that he's imagined that, it's not gonna happen. You know?
Exactly.
Damn you, Gurm.
Damn you, Gurm.
Yeah. So that's disappointing. And Jaime's also disappointed by that vision. He thought that, you know, he'd have something more exciting planned. And Bronn's retort to this was great. I've had an exciting life. I want my death to be boring. It's great. I can appreciate that.
It's a good line. How disappointing.
So he has another like astute moment here. He's like, well, how would you want to go, to Jaime? And he's like, in the arms of the woman I love. And he's like, she want the same thing. You know, and this sort of catches Jaime by surprise, that he has the audacity to make a remark like this to Jaime. Although he had asked Bronn before, did you talk to my brother like this?
Yeah.
So he knows that he's flippant. He's got like loose tongue. But his head snaps towards Bronn when he says this, and it just goes to show you again that how astute Bronn is. He can see that Cersei isn't true to Jaime, and he's trying to warn him here as nicely as he can, you know.
For sure.
So then they're talking about the bag of gold that Jaime gave to the ship captain to bribe him not to say anything.
It was a heavy bag.
Yeah, and Bronn's like, I don't really think that matters, you know. Now that you're off the ship, he can go ask for another bag of gold to turn you in, basically. Which we end up learning is true because Obara has the ship captain buried up to his head in the sand, which is fucking hilarious too.
Yes.
Another funny moment. So then they hear voices coming or horses' hooves, and they sort of duck behind the thing, behind like a little dune, like some little like tuft of grass, like Homer's hair, like barely anything, you know. Like,
it's like that's the worst place to hide ever.
Yeah, and so the guys kind of perfectly stop in the clearing, like right in front of Jaime and Bronn, and see the tracks and everything, and Bronn's reaction, fucked in the ass. Like, we're busted, you know. So he jumps up. Morning, lads. Glad we found you. Who are you? Cooper. And this is Darnell. He's playing the game of faces a little bit here, making up fake identities and everything. You're from King's Landing? Accent gave me away. Flea bottom, whelped and whipped. Great line. And so they say their ship capsized and they managed to swim ashore.
And I think they were kind of believable until they brought up the sharks.
Yeah. And Jaime's like, and he's like, thought the sharks would get us. And Bronn looks over at him like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Shut the fuck up.
I had this handled, you know. It's classic.
We don't have sharks in Dorne.
Yeah. And so he's like, I could have sworn those were shark fins. And Bronn's like, dolphins maybe? I don't know.
Oh my God.
Throw your swords in the sand. And Bronn's classic response, like every time you like get pulled over or something, you don't want to like there's no need for this. This isn't necessary. Just point me in the right direction. We'll find our way home, you know? And,
yeah, right, dude.
Yeah. So his sword's in the sand now. And he shoves his blade into the sand and grabs his kukri and launches it. And he's done this on a couple occasions. One was he didn't follow through with the full launch, but when he was facing off with the Hound before the Battle of Blackwater Bay in the tavern, he sort of slyly, he reaches behind his back and grabs the blade in preparation to make a similar move. And then I think at the loot train battle, there's a scene where somebody's like riding at him on horseback or something that, and he launches the kukri.
Dothraki.
Yeah, he launches the kukri at him there to save himself. And interestingly, who else have we seen throw a blade in a similar fashion to this?
Why is it escaping me?
It's a me.
It's Dario.
And he kills the champion of Meereen.
That's right. I knew we had seen somebody else. I was thinking of Arya, but she actually never throws the knife. She just has that. Yeah.
So we've had a lot of comparisons. People speculate that Dario may be Bronn's younger brother, right?
Oh, and I like that theory.
The recasting makes them look very similar. But they had talked, Bronn had talked about having a brother and stuff like that before. So I don't know. It's just another little similarity that they have, this little knife trick that they throw their blade to kill somebody on a horse, basically. And I mean, in Dario's case, he killed the horse itself.
Sure.
But, just a cool little parallel.
Nice.
So before they jump out and reveal themselves, Bronn's like, how many are there? To Jaime, he's like, 4. And he's like, how many do you think you could take? And he's like, 1 if he's slow. Like, why did you bother coming, Jaime? Like, you're useless at this point. So Bronn throws the blade at the guy, gets him right in the neck, knocks him off dead off the horse. Second guy comes at Bronn and he picks up his blade out of the sand and spins around in a smooth motion to parry the guy's attack, and then slices him right off the horse and kills him too. And then the third guy comes at him and the horse rears and Bronn slices the horse's belly, and the rider tumbles off. And he has a good line to Jaime.
That one should be slow enough.
Yeah. Such a funny line. And Jaime goes to fight him, and man, It is rough to watch. Jamie looks so
hard.
awkward with the fighting left-handed, and his right arm is just like dangling bent there and like just so awkwardly. It doesn't look like he knows where to put his arm when he's fighting.
It's so funny because I'm left-handed, so watching him, even though it's hard to watch because we know how awkward he is with it, it looks more natural for me because I would do it that way.
That's funny.
I would swing my sword that way. So, but it's like writing your name with your other hand.
Yeah.
It just,
But
you should be able to do that.
But you'd think that, like, with all the practice that Bronn and Jamie have had together, that Bronn would be like, okay, don't fucking, like, hold your goddamn hand like that. It's so weird, you know? Like, balance yourself with it, like fencing or, you know, something.
Do you think maybe the gilded steel throws the balance off?
I mean, they would make it heavier, but what really I think is that it was just poor choreography. They're trying to emphasize the fact that Jamie is awkward basically, so they intentionally make it awkward, whereas if this was like reality, which it's not, Bronn would have given him some tips on this. You know, the stance would be one of the first things that Jamie would have learned in his retraining, essentially. So it's just choreography to emphasize the fact that he's, you know, using his offhand. Basically, they're making him look awkward. So
sure.
He's getting pummeled. The guy's blasting blade, like you know, swinging the blade down on him like Brienne was on the bridge,
hacking the shit out of him.
Yeah, just pummeling him into submission, and he knocks the blade out of his hand, and Jamie's just like rolling around on the ground and shit hilariously, and the guy's about to fucking kill him, just slicing downward. And he reaches up with the golden hand and catches the blade. And he even surprises himself. Like
He's like, oh my God.
He double takes, like, oh, like looks over at the blade in his hand. And then it, like, he sort of twists the hand because it's stuck in there, but he like sort of makes sure it stays stuck by twisting the hand a little bit. And he goes and grabs his blade out of the sand and jams it through the guy in spectacular fashion. And then kind of turns the guy around and kicks him off of the blade. And I just thought this was a really great piece of stunt work by whoever was playing this Dornish man. He kind of rolls down this sandy slope like 6 or 7 times in just like a perfectly controlled, like artistic, like awesome, like roll, which is just really, really well done. You know, it was a nicely performed stunt, like almost too perfect. And so Bronn comes over the crest and he's like, nice move. James like, luck, you know, and it totally was luck. And much as Littlefinger complimented himself, saying that, you know, you learned by the best, Bronn's like, you had a wonderful teacher, giving himself some props.
Which is so funny because his teaching of Jamie, I mean, we just saw it on display and
How
it was terrible.
It was. Yeah, totally. Yeah, good point. So they come upon these horses and Bronn's like, I always wanted a Dornish stallion. Beasts can run a day and night without tiring. And that's impressive, man. Like that is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Are there horses like that in real life that are like that good?
I would say, yeah, there's like Arabians and thoroughbreds would probably be closest to being able to sustain that. I would say Arabians most of all. There's a sport called endurance, where there's awesome, it's kind of like the Iditarod for horseback riding.
Nice.
It's 100 miles and you basically ride your horse through the wilderness and you go up really steep terrain and really long distances. And, you know, you would run them probably a solid 24 hours, I would say.
That's hardcore.
I mean, probably not like full speed, but
right, yeah.
You know, when you're going up a 45-degree sheer granite side of a cliff,
that's work. That's a lot of work.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
It's a cool sport. You should check it out. Really dangerous.
What's it called?
It's called endurance.
Endurance, nice, yeah.
And Arabians are extremely popular for that sport.
Yeah, well, that makes sense because these were like the desert horses basically down in Dorne, so that would be the parallel that Gurm is drawing here for sure. Yes,
and I would have to like reread when I got this, but if I'm not mistaken, all horses on the planet are descendants from 13 Arabians.
Whoa, that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the number. It might be 16 or 19 or something like that. But
Wow, that's really cool.
It's under 20. So
talk about a bottlenecked population.
Yeah, every breed of horse has some type of Arabian beginnings, but you have to go. It's like dogs. I mean, you breed them, but they all stem from that part of the world for sure.
Nice. So they're gonna ride to the water gardens with the nice breeze in their faces. But first, Jaime says, we need to bury these bodies. And Bronn is like, but birds have to eat too, you know, like what the fuck? But Jaime's like, no. Corpses raise questions, and questions raise armies. And we're not here to start a war. And Bronn, do you know how long it'll take us to dig all these holes? Us? And Jaime's like, well, yeah, but
I can't dig very well with one hand. Not at all, really.
So you know how long it's going to take you? Twice as long as it would have taken us. And Bronn is just his face just drops again hilariously.
For sure.
Which is so funny. That's pretty much it for my number 4. What you got?
You're so funny. Okay, well, my number 4 is perfect timing, which is the sand snakes.
Perfect timing?
Because we just got off. It's the next scene.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
You're like, perfect timing for what?
Yeah. I thought like, yeah. I don't
perfect timing because the next scene is Ellaria riding that gorgeous horse on the beach. Oh my God.
What a shot, right? Oh man.
Oh God. I've galloped horses on the beaches like that before. I know what it feels like. That horse is stunning. The color of it is called a dun. It's like a palomino type color with a black mane and tail. Ugh. They're not super like common. I mean, they're common enough, but they're not a common color. And they can be quite stunning with her garb that she had on.
Flapping in the breeze.
Oh my God, I loved it.
And you couldn't tell who she was. Yeah, I thought it was amazing too. I have down that that was just a gorgeous shot.
Yeah,
beautiful.
And the sound. Oh my goodness. I wrote in my notes, I want to be Ellaria Sand riding this horse on the beach.
Yeah, and yeah, like you said, this is our introduction to the sand snakes.
Yes, so we meet Tine, Obara, and Nim.
Lady Nim.
Yes.
Which
Lady
is your
Nim.
favorite of these characters?
I kind of like Obara.
Oh, interesting.
Because she most reminds me of Oberyn.
Interesting. She looked very similar to Ellaria in this scene as well.
Yeah, I just like her attitude about, and we'll get into this, you know, she's always been on the side of her father. You know, I made my decision a long time ago. She wields the spear like her father. I like how she's kind of the tomboy of the two of them, I guess you would say, because we know that Tine is Illyria's actual daughter. Nim and Obara are actually Prince Oberyn's bastards from other women. But they all kind of come together because, as we've come to know, that Dorne is pretty open with these affairs. I mean, Ellaria clearly has seen Oberyn having sex with other women.
Oh yeah, super poly.
This shouldn't come as any surprise that he has other daughters with other women. In fact, he has 8 daughters because he tells that to Cersei. So this is only 3 of the 8.
I think there's even more in the books too.
And so we know that Ellaria only has 1 of his biological children. And I think being that Ellaria is Tyne's mother, she tends to be a little bit more meek and waiting to decide what her mom's going to do. She's always going to side with her mom. Nim is kind of girly still. She has like the long pretty hair. She has the whip as her weapon, which I love.
Whip girl.
The whip girl. And so I like, out of the 3 of them, I like Obara the best because I think she closely resembles Oberyn's passion for fighting and tradition.
Nice. Well, I'm with Bronn on this one. I like Tine.
Yes.
I think she's pretty.
She's pretty damn pretty. But I think from a character development perspective, not just a booby perspective.
By any boobs necessary.
Boobies.
I was referencing that Honest trailer where they're talking about the show where HBO tries to keep your attention by any boobs necessary.
Boobs.
I love it.
I like the Sand Snakes because while they're against their uncle, they have a really simple reason for doing what they're doing. They have a different view of the situation, and it's really uncomplicated compared to Prince Doran's. It's their father died. They think he died, wrongfully, and they're gonna get revenge, and that's it. That's simple. They don't have to worry about the implications of an entire nation and starting a war with the Lannisters. So
right.
I like that they're passionate about, avenging their father, but it's a stark contrast to someone like Prince Doran, who has the entire nation to be concerned about.
Definitely. I think that, obviously a lot of people were pretty disappointed with the way the Sand Snakes turned out on the TV show because they're just so cool in the books, that people sort of had high expectations, which is understandable considering how well everything else is done on the show. But I'm trying to keep my mind open for the rewatch and pick out positive things,
Yeah, so as a book reader, were you disappointed in how they were kind of portrayed in the show versus the books? Because I haven't gotten to them
definitely,
yet.
Definitely.
That's too bad, because I think they are cool characters.
And they're way cooler in the books. If you think they're cool on the show, they're really cool in the books.
I know that next season, or not next season, next episode, when Jaime actually tries to extract Marcella out of the water gardens, I knew that people were super disappointed in that fight scene because they're supposed to be really experienced fighters, and it was just kind of poorly choreographed. But
little mini
I did
Oberyns.
read online that where they shot that, I believe it was in Spain. It was actually at a
palace, basically.
It was at a palace that couldn't be completely closed down. So they were allowed 8 hours to close it down completely to shoot. So they were under major time constraints as well.
Damn, I didn't know that.
So yeah, it wasn't, they had a really short amount of time at the palace, and they only had 8 hours to shoot that scene. So the choreographed moves and stuff, they just couldn't get them perfected. I remember reading an article with Gwendolyn Christie, and that scene where her and Jaime are fighting on the bridge. Mm-hmm. And that was 40 hours of choreographed filming to get that 10, 5-minute scene. So I think, unfortunately, their choice of location impacted the way the Sand Snakes came off in the show.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Because they just didn't have enough time to rehearse on set, and they had a very short amount of time to film it.
There's also little character stuff though, the way they're playing the hand slapping game and stuff.
Oh,
and,
yeah, they would never do that in the books.
The books, they would never do that shit. It's just so funny. But
That's too bad.
Yeah, it's all good, they work with what they got, and they had to condense a whole bunch of storylines into a really short amount of time, and they did it the best they could, so it's fine.
So I mean, there's gonna be really strong parts and some kind of weak links, but I mean, the weak links of the show are some of other shows on TV's strongest parts. So
yeah, exactly. We're talking about weak links here.
We're really kind of pulling it apart farther than it needs to go.
Definitely,
I agree with that. Because I personally have not gotten to them in the books yet, and I enjoyed their storyline without knowing, as a first-time viewer, without knowing the disappointment that came with them. So, from a non-book reader...
Nice. Well, I'm looking forward to hear what you think when you get to them in the books.
Yeah, I know. If I can ever find a moment to sit back down and read.
Right.
I miss it. But yeah, so we get their kind of dynamic here, and Obara goes, "Will it be war?" Ilaria, "Prince Dorian will weep for your father, but nothing else. We must avenge Oberyn ourselves." And I loved that because, like I just said, it's about vengeance, and there's nothing else to really worry about. She goes, Obara goes, "Without Doran, we have no army to march against the Lannisters. We don't need an army to start a war. Queen Cersei loves her children, and we have one of them."
Just for the record, I'm wondering, does your script does it say who said what line on it?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Mine don't. I need yours. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah, wherever you get them.
Oh, how funny. They name her Nymeria in this.
Oh, yeah, Lady Nym is short for Nymeria.
Oh, it is. Okay, so her name is Nymeria.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, Nymeria. Huh, I didn't know that. I thought her name was just Nym. That's just what they call her.
Well, Nymeria famously sailed to Dorne, I believe.
Oh.
Nymeria's journey. Like the actual Nymeria, not the wolf, you know.
That's crazy because I made the connection that Arya would love Dorne.
Oh, interesting.
Because I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but Obara, when she's talking about being a child and Oberyn took her to court and I'd never met him, but he called himself my father. My mom said I was too young, a girl, and Oberyn tossed a spear at my feet and said, "Girl or boy, we fight our battles." Right.
Yeah, I think that speaking of Arya and Nymeria and Dorne, so Nymeria was a princess of the Rhoynar, and after the Rhoyne was conquered by Valyria, Nymeria led the Rhoynar to Dorne, where she took Lord Mors Martell as her husband. And House Martell has ruled Dorne ever since. So Nymeria is known as like a leader warrior woman who led a whole nation essentially. And the way that they design the Arya character is sort of paralleling her like fighter spirit basically, and going on these large journeys, and
which is why she names her wolf Nymeria.
Right. Yeah. So
got it.
Yeah, exactly. So they're intentionally drawing a comparison. So it makes sense that you would associate Arya with liking Dorne because that's where like the original Nymeria went, and this Nymeria is definitely named after that original Nymeria as well. So just a little bit of history there for you.
That's crazy. Yeah, no, that actually just kind of ties my number 4 kind of all together because I just felt like Arya would love living in Dorne because they're kind of powered by women, and that whole story of what you just talked about with Nymeria makes total sense.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so I would say that's basically it. I loved Obara when she said, "I made my choice long ago," and then splat.
Yeah, pointed at my spear and pointed at her tears. I was
not expecting that the first time. I watched it.
So funny. She makes like a little ha when she throws it too.
Yeah, and it's pretty gory. And the first time I watched, because I told you I tried to avoid the gore when I first watched this.
Oh yeah, you couldn't miss that one.
So I was totally not expecting that to happen. And when it happened, I was like, oh my God, my eyes.
Hilarious.
Yeah, so I would say that wraps up my number 4.
Awesome.
What is your number 3?
Oh, it's a sad day in Gotham with the death of Batman. Yeah. So Dany and Barristan are atop the pyramid, and we have a fun, nostalgic moment reminiscing about Rhaegar and his good heart, like we talked about before, singing to the people, being with the people, getting donations for playing, seeing how much you could get, but giving them away. And we learn that he was good at playing the harp and singing too. And Barristan is kind of surprised that Viserys didn't tell Dany that. And she tells him that, he told me Rhaegar was good at killing people. Oh, funnily, also, I liked how Barristan said that he would go along with him and make sure no one killed him, which is cool, and collected the money. So Viserys told her that Rhaegar was good at killing people, and Barristan tells her, well, Rhaegar never liked killing people. He loved singing, and I thought this was interesting because Rhaegar, much like his son, Jon Snow, takes no pleasure in killing. And this is also a very Stark-like quality. This gives us an insight into why, throughout all of Ned's point of view chapters in A Game of Thrones, Ned never has a single negative thought about Rhaegar. It seems they're sort of like kindred spirits, both men of moral character, you could say. And so, Ned, like we talked about last episode, out of all the High Lords and everything, like the Hound said, your father was a killer. We're all killers. We love killing, you know. Ned and the Starks, out of everybody, probably like killing the least, you know, at least of all like the major players. So it makes sense that Lyanna would appreciate Rhaegar, and he's very similar, you know. He's got sort of Stark-like values. For a Targaryen, he's very Stark-like. But yeah, there's just some cool like comparisons here between Jon and Rhaegar. They're both, neither of them take pleasure in killing. Jon is described as being mopey, you know, and Rhaegar is described as being melancholy. And so they're both like some kind of sad, introspective people who are both really good fighters, but also are sort of philosophical in certain way. You know, Rhaegar more so, but Jon gets, you know, he gets a little philosophical sometimes.
For sure. He gets a little bit broody.
Yeah, broody, and yeah, that's definitely the way Rhaegar was too. Big time. He would express his brooding in songs that would make you weep.
I'll brood with you, Jon.
Jon and Rhaegar were also both born in tragic circumstances that haunt them for the rest of their lives. Rhaegar being born during the tragedy at Summerhall as the fire raged and killed King Aegon and Sir Duncan the Tall, among other people as well. He would return to Summerhall at least once a year, I believe, to write sad songs amidst the ruins. Whereas Jon was born as his mother died at the tragedy that occurred at the Tower of Joy, where Sir Arthur Dane died, and etc. And this haunts him as well as he wonders about his mother and broods. So there's a lot of similar things about these two characters that have affected their psychology. So they, you know, have some laughs about Rhaegar, and he went and talk about what would he do with the money. You know, one time he gave it to the next minstrel down the street. Another time he gave it to an orphanage in Flea Bottom. One time they got horribly drunk. And it's nice for Dany to get a chance to like get some insight into her brother, because she didn't really get any of that with Viserys.
No, not at all.
Not at least the nuanced perspective that she's getting from Barristan. So it's cool, but it's also sad because this is going to be her last opportunity to learn about her family from Barristan, right?
Oh, I'm so sad.
Yeah, it's sad. It's her last opportunity to get to know Rhaegar a little better until she gets the opportunity to meet his son.
Where they just go to town on each other.
Hilarious. But yeah,
oh, man. It's
just kind of cool, you know. Oh, remember how one of the lines in the first season when they're trying to discover the lineage of like, or the reason why Jon Arryn got killed, and his last dying words were, "The seed is strong," you know, talking about Lannister seed and like blonde children. We get sort of the reverse here with the Stark seed being strong, whereas Targaryens typically are
the dominant
silvery blonde, like silvery hair, basically. Apparently, Lyanna's Stark's seed was strong because Jon has black hair. You know, he's got more of a Stark look to him,
which is interesting too, because Catelyn's children, with the exception of Arya, if I'm not mistaken, all have kind of reddish hair.
Yeah, they have sort of a Tully look.
So the Tully seed is stronger than the Stark seed in that instance, but the Stark seed is stronger than the Targaryen seed in Jon's instance.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Well, it is. Genetics are a weird thing for sure, because I'm kind of blonde with blue eyes and my husband's dark hair, dark eyes. And our son, he looks like my husband, but he has my coloring.
That's neat.
It's kind of fun. But his eyes are not the same color as mine. They're actually, you know what's funny is they're actually the same color as Emilia Clarke's. They're the blue on the outside with the brown in the middle.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so they tend to change colors.
Mine
a
changed
lot.
too, from blue to green.
Mine are always blue, no matter what I wear, no matter what type of day it is outside. They're always blue. But Justin's, they change.
Interesting.
They change every day.
So we learn that Hisdar Zolorak is waiting.
Hisdar.
He's fucking obsessed with those fighting pits.
I was going to say ridiculous. He can't let it go.
Yeah.
He can't let it go. Let it go.
Yeah, that's the Harpy's tactic to get Dany surrounded, I guess, you know, so they need somebody pushing it. So Barristan is like, I can, you know, stay if you want or whatever, and Dario's like, I can stay and protect you from Hisdar, and Dany has kind of a funny line. I think I can protect me from Hisdar Zolorak. Yeah, hilariously.
That's so funny.
And then she tells Barristan, "Go, Sir Barristan, sing a song for me."
Oh,
and it's so
song.
obvious. Yeah, it's so obvious in retrospect that this is the last time they're going to see each other. You know?
Yeah, because he's having a happy memory.
Right, exactly. And you're not allowed to do that.
Not on Game of Thrones. Yeah. Not in Planet Tews.
Not in Westeros. So Barristan's off, and you know, she never gets to see him again, at least not living. So yeah, that's really sad moment.
Not living. I like how you put that in there.
Yeah, he never gets to see her again. She gets to see him again, but he's dead, so she gets to see his corpse. But yeah, just kind of a, you know, cool scene. So we get to see Hisdar, and he's freaking out about the fighting pits. And there's nothing,
boo-hooing.
Not really too much to say here, except that it's probably a tactic to try to get Dany in a place where they can plan to try to assassinate her. That's what I'm thinking this time around.
Yeah, it's hard to decide for me, because he's so surprised when it happens.
Well, Hisdar may not necessarily have any idea. He may not be in on the plan, you know. But as a representative for them, he must be getting a lot of pressure to push for this.
Yes, I agree with that for sure. I don't think he really knows the full plan.
Yeah.
Although he does make a good point here. He goes, traditions are what hold, you know, are the only thing that's holding on the city together. Without them, former slaves and former masters have nothing in common. Nothing but centuries of mistrust and resentment.
True.
I can't promise this is the answer to all of our problems, but it's a start. And I think this is really true, because it's the one thing, these fighting pits, whether they were freedmen or slaves fighting in them, that was kind of common between the masters and the slaves. And in this new world where there's no hierarchy or structure at all, like, it might be wise to put something into place that they can both relate over to avoid civil war. Yeah,
I mean, it's certainly desirable from the perspective of the masters who might get wiped out.
True.
Yeah. But yeah, I get what you're saying. To prevent everybody from just killing each other.
I mean, like he said, though,
create some type of bridge.
It's not going to answer all of the problems, but it's a start. It's a start to try to mend and move forward in this new world that Dany's created.
So then it cuts to the whore who helped kill White Rat. Is his name White Rat?
Yes.
And the Sons of Harpy attack and are just creating chaos all over the place and killing all these guys. And the Unsullied hear the chaos and go to respond. And the lying whore, as Tyrion would have said, points them in a direction to go and sets them up to be ambushed. The bitch. And unfortunately, they've got spears and they're going into close quarters, so that's not a great...
Yeah, I noted that too. Most of the Sons of the Harpy had knives. Some of them had swords, but most of them had knives.
Yeah, Bronn would not have been stoked about this tactical decision of using spears in like narrow alleyways and stuff like this. So Grey Worm and friends, Grey Worm and friends, they go in there and get surrounded. And Barristan... first chaos ensues and they're fighting all over the place and dudes Unsullied are getting cut down and Barristan hears the chaos from out in the street and all these people are running away, but he draws his sword lightning fast and starts heading towards the madness like a true badass. And I'm like, fuck, Barristan is so goddamn cool.
Batman.
Yeah.
Here's the bells. There he goes.
And this fucking sucks so much. Like, I love the Barristan character, man. I really, really like Barristan Selmy. So it's really just, depressing to lose him.
When it first happened and him and Grey Worm are laying there, my husband and I looked at each other. We were like, one of them's not getting up. And we were like, who's it going to be?
Right.
And we were talking about like, well, it could be Barristan because that would be more of a shock value, but it could also be Grey Worm because he's basically the commander of her army, and that would be a huge loss in itself. And
it could have thrown Melisandre for a loop and like made her be all fucked up for a while, which would throw off Dany's game.
I can't remember who I originally picked. I think I thought Grey Worm wasn't going to get up, but I'm pretty sure my husband said that Barristan wasn't going to get up.
Damn.
So it's like, I don't know. And he was right.
Yeah. So they're fighting and Grey Worm gets stabbed. And I'm like, oh shit. And then it's like all the Unsullied are dead and it's just Grey Worm against like fucking 10 guys. Just totally surrounded. And he's like spinning around, fighting them off one by one, killing them with a spear, parrying attacks with a spear and the shield. And all of a sudden, all the Sons of the Harpies turn and look as Batman enters from the other side of the room and drops one guy. Yeah, Barristan. And so then they sort of split in two, and Grey Worm is fighting like 6 guys, and Barristan is fighting like 6 or 7 guys. And the music intensifies, and as Barristan just fucking shines for a minute here, just cutting down foes left and right with massive speed and the ferocity of a viper. And we get to finally see at least a moment of what was alluded to all the way back in season 1 when he gets stripped of his white cloak. And as he pulls his blade out, some of the rest of the Kingsguard that are standing there all like sort of pull their swords because they think that he's gonna like rush the king or something. And he's like, even now I could cut through the 5 of you like so much butter. A great line. And we get to see him. Cake. Yeah, we get to see him doing that here with the Sons of the Harpy, just slashing left and right and moving so fast and agilely for a man of his age. Just really, really cool. Barristan's the man. It sucks that he dies. It fucking sucks.
Yeah.
So Grey Worm is struggling to fend off all these guys on the other end, and Barristan gets kicked from behind and gets slashed across the leg and then stabbed right through the solar plexus area, it looked like. And the Harpy gets up behind him and is just about to slit his throat, and Grey Worm apparently finished off the rest of those guys. That didn't sound good. Killed the rest of those guys and came over and ices this ices this guy behind. What do you want me to do? Whack a guy, off a guy, whack off a guy? Because I'm married. Kills the Sons of the Harpy guy behind Barristan, and the guy drops, and Barristan drops, and Grey Worm desperately struggles to try to administer aid to Barristan, but he's just too badly injured, and
they're both too badly injured.
Yeah, Barristan is unconscious already, and Grey Worm collapses in a heap next to him in a pool of expanding blood. And just a heartbreaking scene, seeing two people who we love so much, and Dany's 2 closest ride or dies basically. I mean, who's been around longer, Barristan or Dario?
Barristan.
All right, then. Yeah, her two closest ride or dies are not riding here. They're dying.
Yeah, because Barristan comes into play right after Karth. And we see Barristan and Dany looking over at the Second Sons and Jorah. And that's when she goes, men that fight for gold can't afford to lose to a girl. She says that to Barristan.
Right. Good call. Yeah, and Barristan is in Astapor when she Yunkai. What is it? Astapor or Yunkai, where she gets the Unsullied.
Astapor.
Yeah. Barristan is in Astapor as well because he's like questioning her decision to give up the dragon with Jorah.
Yeah,
and she scolds both of them.
She's like, "You undermine me again, and I'm gonna whack you."
Mm-hmm. So funny. I noticed a pretty glaring continuity error in this scene.
I saw that you posted it on the Facebook page.
Did you watch it?
Yeah. Oh
Isn't
my God.
hilarious?
The Sons of the Harpy disappeared.
Yeah. So the shot where it's like kind of close, it's tight in on like Barristan as Grey Worm leans in and tries to help him. And Grey Worm collapses backwards onto his back, and his head sort of rests up against the hip of this dead son of the Harpy that's lying behind him with a golden mask and everything. And then the shot cuts to an overhead view, and all of a sudden the guy who Grey Worm is leaning against is just gone entirely, and Grey Worm is like lying 2 feet further away from Barristan than he even was
for work.
Yeah, it must have. So just a little that's probably the most clumsy continuity error from the whole show. I mean, I've never picked up on anything that major in terms of continuity errors.
Not at all.
Amazed that made it to the final cut.
Yeah, I've watched this series so many times. I've never caught it, so it's a continuity error, but it's obviously one that isn't all that glaring. But now that you showed that video on Facebook, I was like, oh my God, it's a disappearing harpy.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. So yeah, awesome. I just thought that was a pretty funny little thing. And then, they must have just taken 2 shots from 2 entirely different filming days or something. Because otherwise you'd remember like the actor playing Grey Worm would have remembered like, oh, my head was like lying against this guy when I was lying there dead. You'd think.
Yeah.
But that sums up my number 3.
Okay.
How about you? What's your
My number 3 was Batman's Farewell.
So, same thing. Anything else you want to add then?
No, I think we covered it in pretty good detail.
All right.
So what's your number 2?
My number 2 is Princess Shireen of the House Baratheon.
Okay.
Shireen comes to visit Stannis, and he asks her if she's lonely, and she says, just bored. And he says, my father used to tell me that boredom indicates a lack of inner resources. And she sort of boldly here says, oh, were you bored a lot too?
You were bored too?
You lacked inner resources. And I was like, oh, you set yourself up for that one, Stannis.
Yeah.
Wisdom from the mouths of babes, as it foreshadows like kind of Stannis's shortcomings, his failures to come. I don't know, his lack of something, just lack. He lacks whatever it takes to win at Winterfell, I guess. So then she brings up how she thought that she was going to be left at home because her cruel mother, Selyse, told her that, I don't want to bring you.
Yeah. And
whereas Melisandre stood up for Shireen previously in this episode for darker reasons, you could say, Stannis is oblivious to the upcoming murder plot, basically. And so he sticks to his traditional guns of actually standing up for Shireen here. And he tells her, she shouldn't have said that. She's such a bitch, basically. he doesn't really like Selyse, it seems.
No, he goes, why do you say that? And Shireen goes, she told me I don't want to bring you.
And that's what he says. Yeah, she shouldn't have said that. So obviously things like this have a negative effect on the psychology of little kids, So she asks him kind of like a difficult question, I imagine, as a father, to have your child ask you, "Are you ashamed of me, Father?" And
I know.
it's so just, sad. I have my notes to just says heartbreak! ! And
it's so crazy though, because it's like this is such an odd scene for Stannis from what we've seen of him.
Right.
It's like for him to just be a fatherly figure in this entire series is a hard pill to swallow, but this scene is essential to show the audience that he does love his daughter, and it makes that
sacrifice.
Her sacrifice more realistic from Stannis's perspective.
Right.
How
or more
horrible
impactful,
it was.
at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he goes on to tell the story of how when she was an infant, the Dornish trader landed on Dragonstone and gave them, or he convinced Stannis to purchase a doll that had been contaminated, basically. And he's like, "I still remember how you smiled when I put that doll in your cradle." And Shireen, hearing that, sort of smiles at the thought. And then he says, "How you pressed it to your cheek," and hinting like that's how you got the grayscale, and her smile like fades a little bit, So he says, "By the time we burned the doll, it was too late. I was told you would die, or worse, the grayscale would go slow." And we know what happens when the grayscale goes slow, like we see in
turn into animals
soon. Yeah, we see it in the lots of grayscale stuff approaching the reveal of the Stone Men.
Yes,
leading up to that, they're priming us for that. So another heartbreaking concept for a father to be thinking of. Or worse, the grayscale would go slow, let you grow just enough to know the world before taking it away from you. It's just so brutal. "And everyone advised me to send you to the ruins of Valyria to live out your short life with the Stone Men before the sickness spread through the castle," foreshadowing what we see with Jorah and Tyrion coming up. And Shireen sort of gulps after hearing that, like kind of like a nervous swallow,
Yeah, like, oh
and
my God.
There's sort of a pause, and he turns towards her because he'd been sort of facing the other direction when he was saying this.
Yeah.
And he turns toward her. "I told them all to go to hell."
I love that.
And her reaction, she smiles, and sweet music starts playing. "I called in every maester on this side of the world, every healer, every apothecary. They stopped the disease and saved your life."
I wonder how they stopped it.
Yeah, I know. That'd be interesting to find out.
Because it's not the same method that Sam used on Jorah.
Right.
Because he removed it. And she
Yeah.
still has it on her face.
Yep. Yeah, I'd be very interested to find out. So he goes on, because they stopped the disease and saved your life, and he's rationalizing his decision to call in all these maesters. He says, "'Cause you did not belong across the world with the bloody Stone Men. You are the Princess Shireen of House Baratheon, and you are my daughter." And I just thought that was so fucking epic. You are the Princess Shireen of House Baratheon line. I always loved that.
Yeah.
So cool. And I swear that Stannis's betrayal of Shireen is his downfall.
100%.
It's his total derailment from his otherwise generally righteous path,
Yeah.
aside from the Shadow Demon, the kinslaying and whatnot.
Yes.
But I also feel like the killing of Shireen to try to preserve his army is a symbolic, a metaphoric representation of the idea that I've been talking about on previous episodes, which is individualism versus collectivism.
Mm-hmm.
And the murder of Shireen is, it's the death of the individual. It's the sacrifice of the individual and the collective taking precedent. And it sort of mirrors when Stannis asks, "What's the life of one bastard boy compared to a kingdom?" And Davos says, "Everything." And that's the same thing. Like you should have learned that lesson from Davos. You can't sacrifice the individual for the benefit of the collective. This shows, the death of Shireen backfiring in such a magnificent fashion, leading to the whole army getting slaughtered. It shows you how if you sacrifice the individual, you sacrifice the collective. You know, it doesn't work that you sacrifice the individual to save the collective. The collective is individuals. So if you sacrifice the individual, you kill the essence of the collective, like I said, and that's exactly what happens. Shireen dies, and it results in the whole army being slaughtered.
No, it's great. It's a great. You say it so well. It's perfectly said.
Thanks. Yeah, it shows how it's a visual representation of how giving into collectivism and sacrificing the individual leads to karmic ruin.
Totally. I love Karma. She's such a bitch.
At least it's karmic ruin in his case. Otherwise, it could be, spiritual ruin or whatever. But it's just a really, really powerful scene. At this point, after he says, "And you're my daughter," this is as close as Stannis gets to being loving and sentimental. And it's so awkward.
That awkward hug at the end.
Yeah, Shireen runs up and hugs him.
She has big old crocodile tears in her eyes. And he's like, "Oh, what's touching me?"
And his arms are just stiff as boards at his side. And it takes a couple seconds for him to realize, this is...
I need to hug
what humans
her back.
do would be to raise my arms and reach them around my daughter. So...
and give her a little pat on the back.
Yep, it's so funny. So this is the closest we see Stannis to being a loving father, and it's just a really beautiful moment between the two of them.
It is. It's beautiful, but it's also heart wrenching because you know it's
going to happen, and it just is what he ends up deciding to do in the future is just that much more awful after having stood up for her whole life just to betray her.
I am not looking forward to that scene.
Yeah, definitely.
I usually don't watch it.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
I don't even listen to it. I just lightning bolt through the
I never miss a single frame. I have to watch everything. I torture myself. But I totally understand not wanting to watch it.
For the rewatch, I'll do it. But in my own
for the
leisure
rewatch.
Of watching the show, for the rewatch. That's going to be my new saying. Because I say that all the time. I'm like, I can't watch this episode. I can't watch this episode.
Yeah.
Whenever I say that, I'll be like, for the rewatch.
We'll have to start making Facebook posts about for the rewatch.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it for my number 2.
Okay.
What about you? What do you got?
My number 2 is The Adventures of Tyrion and Jorah. Because I love these two together. I love the journey that they're going to be on for the next few episodes together. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of the start of that relationship. So while it's not the most show propelling scene from a strategy or story perspective, I felt it was important to add to my top 5 because it essentially gets Tyrion to Dany. Mm-hmm. And of course, any scenes with Tyrion in it are always fun to watch.
Oh yeah.
So Tyrion is gagged here, and he's
before that, Jorah steals a boat from that poor guy.
Oh yeah. And he puts some silver on his chest.
Yeah, but that guy's gonna be knocked out for 20 minutes. Somebody could at least, somebody could just walk by and steal that. At least put it in his pocket.
Yeah. So we're on the boat.
And he throws Tyrion into the boat too, just fucking tosses him right in.
Yeah, like a potato sack.
Oh, it looked so painful.
Yeah. And Tyrion's sitting over there trying to get his knife free, getting his ropes free on the knife.
Struggling hard too.
He's like, fuck. He didn't even make a dent in that rope either.
Mm-mm.
So now we get them on the boat. Tyrion's being all annoying, and Jorah finally ungags him, and he goes, "Thank you. Who are you?" And Jorah goes, "Your captor. Do you have wine?" Jorah's like, "No, I can't sleep without wine." Jorah goes, "Then stay awake." He's like, "I don't fucking care." And Tyrion makes the point, "You're going the wrong way. My sister's in Westeros. Westeros is west. We are heading east."
Is west.
And I find it funny here because technically Cersei is not the queen anymore.
Right.
So did Tyrion escape? Oh, that's why. I'm pretty sure Tyrion escaped King's Landing before Tommen got married.
Oh yeah, he got married last episode or this episode or something.
Yeah, so
last episode, yeah.
So Tyrion is still under the impression that Cersei is queen. That's
well, okay. She would have been queen mother technically, but she's like acting queen basically.
Yeah, okay. And Jorah clearly knows who he is. He goes, "I'm not taking you to your sister." And Jorah's like, "I'm taking you to Queen Daenerys."
And Tyrion just has to laugh.
She's like, "Well, what a waste of a good kidnapping. It so happens I was heading there myself."
Yeah, like, we could have just talked this out.
Yeah. And Jorah goes, "What business would you have with the queen?"
Gold and glory. And hate.
And hate.
If you'd ever met my sister, you'd understand.
Yeah, so he makes a good point. So now it's clear that we're both on the same side.
Right, yeah, hilarious.
He's trying to figure out who Jorah is, and he goes, "A high-born knight from the north of Westeros, down on his luck in Essos. Dragon, epaulets, bare sigil breastplate. You're Jorah Mormont."
Intellect just shining. He's such a fucking genius.
Oh,
man.
I know. I was curious how he knew that he was from the north. Was it his accent?
By his accent, yeah.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, so they have like their cute little banter, and again, his intellect kicks in, and he goes like, "Why would the queen have sent you away? Oh, wait, you were spying on her, weren't you?
Yeah.
It's all coming back to me. I was drunk through most of the small council meetings, but it's all coming back." And Tyrion goes, "She found out, didn't she?
Yeah.
Found out and exiled you. And now you hope to win back her favor with a gift. A risky scheme. One might even say desperate."
And the whole time, Jorah's just looking more and more upset.
Yeah, because then he punches him in the face.
Yeah, right after the next line. "You think Daenerys will execute me and pardon you?" I'd say the reverse is just as likely. And he decides he's had enough. And what kind of slap is it?
Imp slap.
Oh. Slaps the shit out of him.
Freaking decks him across the face.
Oh yeah, and he's out cold, I think, and Jorah just goes back to the tiller or to the steering device.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a short number 2, but I find it's really important from the development of Dany and getting Tyrion over to her, and also I really enjoy their travels together, especially next episode when they go through Valyria. I'm really excited to talk about that.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome. It's always one of the best.
Yeah, so that was it for my number 2. So what's your number 1?
My number 1 is Tommen the Limp.
Okay.
So, we already got the scene. We haven't talked about it yet. We'll talk about it a little later, where Cersei rats out Loras and gets the Faith militant on his case. So they arrest Loras, and Marjorie is fucking losing her shit.
Pissed.
Why the fuck is my brother in a cell and Tommen's just clueless? He's such a limp noodle. I don't know. I didn't order it.
I love that he was like cutting into his meat, and she like barges in, and he's like,
stopped,
what's going on?
So Tommen is just fucking clueless here. He doesn't even like know about what's going on, basically. And Marjorie is just so pissed. If this was me, I would have my army rounding up the Faith militant and arresting everybody, basically. And I probably have my mother put under house arrest and stripped of all legal authority to make any decisions. Because you don't fuck with my bride, basically. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's not cool. Plus, like your time in power is over. You had your chance.
Yeah.
Stop fucking around. So Marjorie's like, "We both know who did this. You told me she was returning to Casterly Rock," and Tommen is just like so clueless. Like, "You're saying my mother did this?"
What's going on?
You are really dumb, for real.
She's jealous that you're not hers anymore. Arresting my brother is revenge.
Aren't you and Mother getting along?
And I love this because she's realizing like he's totally clueless. So the anger is not going to work. So she goes, oh, my sweet, sweet king.
She's trying so hard not to freak out.
At all? Yeah, she has to like totally reset herself. She realizes she needs to play a victim to get him to want to like take
damsel
action.
In distress type thing.
Yes.
And
even though she wants to like rip his face off.
Yeah, and I'm just like, Tommen, you're so dense, bro. All right. Where's Joffrey when you need him? That's right, I said it.
Oh my god. No, my ears are burning.
No way these faith militant fuckers would be allowed to get away with this if Joffrey was around.
No.
Yeah, obviously I wouldn't want Joffrey around, but
no.
It's like you said, do you have any affection for me at all? Of course I do. You're my queen. And he's so like gallant in this moment and everything. Like he's trying, but he's just such a dope.
He is.
And
he's so cute though. It's like hard not to
right.
Like
yeah, he's
him.
like a little
he's like a little kid.
Yeah, he is too. And so again, manipulating someone into thinking they're making their own decision. She's like, I can't bear to think of my brother locked away in some grimy cell.
I'll set him free for you.
yeah, exactly. That was great. That's a good impression there. And she's like, you promise? And so then it cuts to him walking in to see Cersei, and she's smugly sipping her wine, like expecting this, you know. And she's got all of her answers already prepared and her diversions and whatnot.
Did I arrest him?
Well, no, but you armed a faith militant. You gave the High Sparrow an army.
I did. And your wife has every right to criticize. We can't allow fanatics to arrest the queen's brother, no matter his perversions.
He's such a manipulating biatch.
I know.
Screw you, Cersei. Like, goddamn. She's just the worst. She has him arrested, and then she's like just saying, no, we can't allow him to be arrested. You know, like, this will not stand. It's like, you did it.
This is certainly testing his abilities to see how much she can manipulate him.
Yeah, she's just straight lying to his face. Like, goddamn. She's
I mean, she knows that she's his mother, and she knows that he's going to listen. But in this situation, she's just testing to see what he's going to do. Yeah,
apparently. And so he's like, then can I tell Marjorie you'll have Sir Loras released?
I told you I'm not holding Sir Loras.
You're the king.
Do something about it.
Yeah, I'm sure if you speak to the High Sparrow, he'll release the poor boy. So he goes to see the High Sparrow and starts walking up the steps, and all the sparrows converge on him, basically. Halt! His Holiness is praying, and he will not be disturbed.
Okay, did you notice the camera angles in this? It's the same camera angles that we get when Tywin is looming over Joffrey. So above the Faith Militant, there's a camera angle that's looking down onto Tommen, and he looks super small. And then
nice.
When it's from Tommen's perspective, it's from lower, like low down,
looking
with
up.
him in the looking up at the Faith Militant.
That's so funny. And so they won't let him through, and one of the Kingsguard or Gold Cloaks, probably a Kingsguard, is like, give the order and we'll clear out this rabble. And Tommen's like, you mean kill them? Here at the Sept?
Which tells that he's already kind of religious.
Yeah, he's a little pious.
He's not like kill them. It's not about killing them so much. It's in front of the Sept.
Yeah, at this holy place.
Like, we can't do that here.
And I love the response. You'll be sending them to the gods they love. Sending them to meet the gods they love. And it gets intense as he says that. He sort of like starts to unsheath his sword, and all the sparrows like get their clubs and their little like stupid weapons ready. Fucking hate the sparrows.
They're so lame.
And Tommen is just like, it's kind of stupid for the Kingsguard here to be like escalating at this particular moment, because Tommen is standing right in the potential crossfire.
Yeah.
Like within striking range for this sparrow and everything. And so basically Tommen is just mad weak. Everyone thought he would be a good king because he doesn't have like a horrible temperament, you know? But when it comes to needing to be strong,
he needs to make decisions.
Yeah, he's just such a limp noodle. Oh, it's just like
limp biscuit.
Yeah. And so people start to shout in the distance in ridicule, "Bastard! You're an abomination! Born of sin! Filthy bastard!" And Tommen like backs down and retreats, basically. "We'll find another way." Abomination! And Tommen returns to Marjorie. "My queen, there was no way to free Sir Loras without violence." And she like has one of those like cartoon blinks. Don't like
I know.
Blink, blink. Like, so fucking what?
She's
kill
like,
them all and get my brother out.
You're the king of the Andals, the lord of the Seven Kingdoms, protector of the realm, and you let a band of fanatics imprison your brother by law? She's like freaking whooping his ass right now, verbally.
Yeah, and he's like, "Well, I'm going to speak with the High Sparrow."
Are you? When?
I don't know.
Sometime soon, when I'm 28 and have muscle.
It's like he was praying just now, and even Tommen knows that this is like a pathetic excuse. As his facial expression gives away his feeling of embarrassment and helplessness, and it's just fucking cringeworthy to watch. Just, oh god, Tommen, like, you're so pathetic, and it's just too much for Marjorie to even handle his just utter weakness. Even the Rainbow Guard Renly was ready to battle. That's classic. And so it's just too much. Marjorie has to roll. She's like, I have to send word to grandmother. And Tommen is just not fucking getting it. He's like, well,
are you gonna come back later to have sex with me?
like no, she's so fucking pissed. She's just trying not to beat you to death, Tommen.
Beat you.
Yeah, like, you're so fucking clueless. And what a like pointless question to ask. No, she's not coming back. And when he asks that, she like kind of stops in her tracks, and she's just like glaring forward and facing away from him.
I'm gonna go be with my family, which is a total slap in the face because she's married to him now. Yeah, technically their family,
her new family. Yeah, and usually it shows you how worked up Marjorie is, because usually she's like a master of diplomacy and performance and manipulating people and just like playing the role of like playing the game in King's Landing, you know. But she's so like beyond bothered because of all this that like her composure is just completely gone, and she just has to go. Like, she has to just fake it. I think because it's directly
affecting her personally.
Right.
It's not something happening to other people that she has to be diplomatic about.
Yeah.
It's happening to her brother, who we know they're very close to.
It's something that's like just has her totally out of her element. Like, yeah, she's never had to deal with something quite like this before, where somebody directly in her family is, you know, being held captive by a group of fanatics, and her husband is just like too bitch made to do anything about it. And yeah, that's basically, to sum it all up, Tommen is just bitch made here.
Totally.
Bitch made motherfuckers get murdered and touched.
Bitch made.
It's the best. Yeah, that's it for my number one. That wraps it up.
All right.
And your number one we covered as well already too, right?
Yeah, my number one was Jon Snow and Melisandre.
All right, so let's cover any notes that we haven't talked about. You take it away. Your turn.
Okay. I'm going to go in sequential order from... So the next note that I have is Mace Tyrell.
The boob.
So we find out that the Iron Bank has called 1/10 of the crown's debts.
And that's a fuck ton, basically.
And Cersei's kind of like, what? How much can we afford? And...
with winter coming, like half what they ask, less?
Like maybe less than that. She goes, well, you're the master of corn. How... corn.
Got bigger chunks of corn in my crop.
You're the master of coin. How do we pay them? And she knows that he's going to offer to pay because he's schmoozing with them.
Again, making you think people are making their own decisions.
Yes. So this is a theme that's coming up in this episode for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so Mace says, well, Heist Tyrell could front the gold, and the crown will pay us back in time, or I'll have words with my daughter. And it's like, you're so annoying.
He thinks he's like being so cool and funny. And
everyone is like, nobody is amused.
Shut up, dude.
They're like, oh my God. Like Qyburn like raises his eyebrows and looks away. Like, awkward.
Must have been hilarious acting this scene.
No one wants to be Mace Tyrell. No one wants to be that person.
It's great. I love the actor does a great job with it.
He does. So
really great job.
He's nerdy in general, and the way he like holds his nose up, he looks so pompous all the time, and it's a perfect fit for his character.
Totally.
Cersei is playing the game here. You've already given us too much. No, we must arrange better terms with the Iron Bank. Mace goes, absolutely. Cersei goes, in person. And he goes, me? Yes, we must send an envoy to the Iron Bank. Someone of importance. To show these bankers our respect. So she's buttering him up, and he is so tickled pink. He's sitting there and he's wiggling, and he's like, oh my God, keep it coming, Cersei. I love it.
I would be honored, Your Grace.
Yes.
Oh, and then she says the king's worried about his father-in-law's safety. So he's appointed Sir Meryn to personally lead his escort.
So here's a question for you. Why would Cersei appoint Sir Meryn to go with him?
Yeah, I don't know.
I was trying to figure that out.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Like, is she trying to get rid of Sir Meryn too? And is that to make room for the mountain?
I was thinking maybe to make room for the mountain.
So that's kind of where I went with it, but
we don't have any confirmation that the mountain is any type of, capable shape yet. That doesn't happen until after she spends a good amount of time in a cell.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. But maybe she's getting updates from Qyburn and we're just not seeing those updates.
It's possible. Certainly
but
possible.
That's total speculation. I was just curious why.
He does end up replacing Sir Meryn because Meryn gets killed.
Yeah.
And then it's him that, steps up.
I just thought, why does she feel the need to protect Mace Tyrell? Like, if he's the master of coin. She's sending him over to Braavos. If something were to happen to him, oh well, no one's going to be mad at her.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure why he would need his own protection. So I found that kind of interesting why she sent Sir Meryn.
And he's like, "Ooh, my own Kingsguard." Like,
safe travels, Lord Tyrell.
He reminds me of like the walrus and the carpenter. Like he's like the walrus.
Totally.
Oh man. And
so we get kind of my favorite line from Pycelle. The small council grows smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
Cersei's like, not small enough.
And like, you're next, bitch. And
Pycelle's face when she says that, he's like, oh. Like, uh-oh, am I next?
He does a great job too. Put the Pycelle actor. Underappreciated.
Yeah, so my next note is Cersei with the High Sparrow.
Yep, same here.
Okay, so why don't you talk about that?
All right, so Cersei goes to meet with the High Sparrow. And she's asking him if he wants to drink wine, and he's like, nah. And the old High Septon would have just asked the vintage, which is kind of funny. And so the High Septon, the High Sparrow tries to kind of relate to her a little bit. And he's like, I could say that the mind are temples to the seven and should be kept pure. But the truth is, I just don't like the taste. I'm like, I don't trust you.
Yeah, that's a load of bullshit.
Yeah, you're just trying to like seem less extreme or something. I don't know. Never trust somebody
more
like him.
More simple. Yeah.
Yeah, somebody who doesn't like the taste of wine. It's like, if you don't like root beer, I don't trust you. Yeah. Or mustard.
I love mustard.
Yeah, it's really good.
I don't like ketchup, but I like mustard.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah,
I
it's
can
too
no
sweet
longer
for
trust
me.
you.
I'm not a sweet person.
You're a horrible, mean person.
I'm a horrible, mean person. No, I like savory food, so even ketchup is like too sweet for me.
It's funny. So he's like, "How may I serve the queen?" Right? And she's talking about how all around they're hearing about septs being burned all over Westeros, silent sisters being raped, bodies of holy men piled in the streets. And she has the dumb idea. It's her idea. Dumbest idea to arm the Faith Militant.
I know.
God
What are you doing?
So dumb. Like, why would you possibly want to do this, Cersei? You think that, what is she thinking? That she could, like, give the High Septon power and that he'll, like, be her personal army? She doesn't understand the way that this guy thinks.
Yeah, it's not about, he's not going to fill her own vendetta.
And he's not in it for power, like, necessarily. Not for, like, his own personal power. He's an ideologue.
Yeah.
You know what the difference between ideology and philosophy is?
Not enough to articulate it. I mean, I know that there is a difference.
Basically, ideology is unchanging. So if you're an ideologue like the High Sparrow, you have your views, you stick to them, you're unwilling to alter your perceptions and your ideas based on new information. It's very rigid and not advisable. You know, ideology is not good. What is good is philosophy, where you can have ideas, but your ideas are based on logic and reasoning and are open to being changed with the addition of new information. And so, just a side point, but he's an ideologue, you know, and you can't reason with an ideologue by definition. No. So she says, perhaps the gods need a sword of their own. In the days before the Targaryens, the Faith Militant dispensed the justice of the Seven. And he's like, well, you know, the Faith Militant was disarmed more than 2 centuries ago. And she's like, if I explain their holy purpose to my son, the king, I have no doubt he will sign a decree arming the believers you felt worthy. And it's just the dumbest idea. An army that defends the bodies and souls of the common people. An army in service to the gods themselves. And to you, of course, as the chosen representative of the Seven. So this is where it's hinted that she's like trying to get him under her wing, basically, in her pocket. An honor I never expected, or indeed ever wished for.
Whatever, dude. You
which
totally
is why
want
you were chosen. Yeah, totally. Absolutely. So she says, you and I both know how the world works. Too often the wicked are the wealthiest, beyond the reach of justice. And I'm like, project much, Cersei?
Right.
Like, you're talking about yourself enough there?
I have that as a note, too.
A total projection. And she basically goes on to say, the king can't always punish those who deserve it the most. Like the king can't go after Loras, for instance. All sinners are equal before the gods. What would you say if I told you of a great sinner in our very midst, shielded by gold and privilege?
Yeah, right in your midst, right this second.
Yeah.
Me.
Yeah. And his response, may the Father judge him justly.
Him.
But it's funny. She says shielded by gold and privilege, and it sort of mirrors what he says to her when we strip away the wealth and the gold and the privilege. What, you know, talking about Cersei later on when she's imprisoned, I think, something like that. Yeah. But then obviously it's talking about Loras. So the Sparrows are just invading the city and destroying barrels of wine, and we're getting interjecting shots of like a montage with all this chaos, and Lancel getting a 7-pointed star carved into his forehead. So
did the Faith Militant in history have these carvings on their head? Is that why they are doing it now that they're militant and not the Sparrows anymore? I'm trying to understand why all of a sudden they're going to start branding their faces with the 7-pointed star. Yeah, I'm not sure if there's a historical significance of like the old Faith Militant of old. If the Faith Militant, because I took it as like a symbolism, like symbology of them moving from Sparrows to like a Faith Militant. So they're gonna like It's kind of like joining the military and getting a tattoo.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know if every faith militant would have it done, but certainly, like, it seems like the higher ranking ones are getting this facial disfiguration.
Sure.
Yeah, it's pretty hardcore. So there's like a merchant getting all of his stuff destroyed by a sparrow,
Help
his
me.
idols and everything. Yeah, and the gold cloaks turn their backs as he pleads for help and gets knocked to the ground by the sparrows. The sparrows tear through Littlefinger's brothel, slapping whores and beating patrons with clubs, maniacally smiling and enjoying the violence to a disturbing degree.
Definitely.
And they're like, against prostitution and shit. And this is where George Carlin would come in. Selling is legal. Fucking is legal. Why isn't selling fucking legal? Love that guy. So Oliver tries to intervene. This is Lord Peter Baelish's establishment, and whack, gets elbowed in the face. And then we hear some guys in the background.
Cocksucker.
Boy fucker. You buggering filth.
There's a special place in the 7th hell for your kind.
Please, I'll pay all of you. Yes, you will. And so Oliver is kind of watching from the door as they start executing the gay dudes for being gay. And that's Oliver's cue to get the fuck out of there, basically.
Yeah.
He was kind of unfazed before this, but once they start killing the gay people, he's like, I need to get the fuck out of here. And he freaks him the fuck out, and he runs. And then Lancel's head carving is complete, and he sits up.
His head carving.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of cool that how they like montaged it throughout this whole like scene of stuff.
Yeah,
pretty
definitely.
Good directing. So then Loras is beating down some fool in the yard, and he finishes the guy off and passes his sword to somebody. And it's a terrible moment to pass off his sword, because right at this moment, all of these sparrows rush into the yard and take him into custody. And he tries to run at first. Did you notice that? He was like, ah! Like,
yeah.
Tries to squirm away. And it sucks, too, because it would have been awesome to see Loras slice down all those fucking sparrows with a sword,
Yeah, for sure.
Fuck the faith militant.
Yeah.
Hashtag
that shit, Duncan.
So they're telling him, like, you have broken the laws of gods and men. And he's like, who do you think you are? Justice. So fuck the faith militant. Fuck you, Lancel, for punishing.
Fuck you, Cersei, for giving them power.
Yeah, fuck the High Sparrow. Fuck Cersei. Fuck
and
all
as far
these
as
fucks.
I'm concerned, this is the nail in the coffin for her last child as well.
We get two people kind of putting their nails in their own coffins this episode. We have Baelish making a bad bet about Stannis and where he's placing Sansa, and we have Cersei making a bad bet about the faith militant, which comes back to bite her in the butt big time. And it hasn't resulted in her downfall yet, but it definitely resulted in the downfall of her whole family and her offspring.
For sure.
I just think, talking about, we mentioned Cersei projecting a minute ago. Now it's like Lancel projecting his own shortcomings onto like the entire population. It's like, you got Robert drunk, you fucked your cousin, now you're punishing everybody else because of your self-loathing. Exactly.
You're trying to take power to make yourself feel better.
Yeah, it's fucking bullshit, man. Lancel. What do you got next?
That's it for my notes.
All right, that's it for my notes too. So let's
awesome.
Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Stay with us, guys. That's Expression by Pold, P-O-L-D. Check them out at soundcloud.com/pold-music. And we're back with news about Game of Thrones. First, from WatchersOnTheWall.com. Surprisingly intimate, Season 8 may feature the longest battle in cinema history.
Oh my god.
And upcoming trailer teased by EW's Hibbard by Luca Nieto. James Hibbard, I'm sort of paraphrasing here. James Hibbard of EW recently stated on their podcast, they spent 10 months filming 6 episodes of television, which would normally take about 2 months. That's pretty crazy. And a lot of that stuff wasn't the big battle stuff, but the regular scenes of 2 people talking in a hallway, he clarifies. If it's a scene that would normally take a day to shoot, they'd spend several days shooting because they're trying so hard to get every little thing right. So they do take after take from all sorts of different angles so that in editing it, they have different ways to piece it together. But the battle is the big, sexy thing, Hibbard concedes. It's shaping up to be what probably, almost certainly, is the longest consecutive battle sequence in cinema history.
Oh,
yes, that's going to be so fucking rad.
excited.
Uh-huh. They've looked to try to find other ones out there, like the one in the 2 Towers in The Lord of the Rings, which is about 40 minutes. And in the movie 13 Assassins, which is also around 40 minutes.
So this is basically going to be like an hour-long battle scene.
Yeah, he goes on to say, this is going to be longer than 40 minutes. It's pretty nuts.
That's incredible.
Yeah, we can look forward to some epic battle scene.
My mind is exploding right now. God. I'm so excited. Oh, God.
They're making cinematic history.
Yes.
They're also making television history because I can't think of any other TV show that had this, like, episodes that this long.
No.
Like up to 2 hours apiece. I'm hoping, we don't know yet. We know they're all going to be longer than an hour, but hoping for the 2 hours for each episode.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
I'll cross all 10 fingers and 10 toes.
Okay. All right. Next one we have is from Deadline.com. Game of Thrones creators David Benioff and D.B. Weiss set for career honor at the VES Awards. Winter is coming tomorrow, in fact, and the duo behind HBO's Game of Thrones is getting their due from the Visual Effects Society.
Just to explain that, today, while we're recording this and the day that this article came out, it's December 20th. So tomorrow is the first day of winter. You guys will probably get this like on the first day of winter, maybe the second day, but just to explain that. So
yes, the solstice is coming.
Yes.
All right. They continue. The VFX group said today that David Benioff and D.B. Weiss will receive its VES Award for Creative Excellence at its 2019 trophy show. VES says the honor recognizes individuals who have made significant and lasting contributions to the art and science of the visual effects industry by uniquely and consistently creating compelling and creative imagery in service to story. The Game of Thrones creators, writers, and directors and executive producers will pick up their hardware during the 17th annual VES Awards on February 5th at the Beverly Hilton. David Benioff and D.B. Weiss are groundbreaking storytellers who have redefined the relationship between the viewer and the story. VES board chair Mike Chambers said, "You can easily see this from the epic following of Game of Thrones, a pop culture phenomenon, which is a testament to their expert blending of visual effects, evocative characters, and remarkable imagination."
So true.
Great.
They really do deserve praise for what they've accomplished, especially with visual effects too, as well. You know, like, goddamn.
Yeah, for sure.
Moving on to Game of Thrones and history. This episode from Time.com, 9 books to read about the real history behind Game of Thrones by Sarah Begley.
George R.R. Martin holds his cards close to his chest when it comes to his inspiration for Game of Thrones. After all, too much information could spoil the plot. But he has acknowledged that much political scheming that drives his A Song of Ice and Fire series is inspired by the Wars of the Roses, when the houses of Lancaster and York engaged in a bloody fight for the English throne. Other historical parallels have been drawn by fans of the books and the HBO series, from Daenerys Targaryen as Elizabeth I to Brienne of Tarth as Joan of Arc. As we wait for both Martin's highly anticipated next tome and the show's 7th season, here are 9 books about historical heroes and villains who played the real-life Game of Thrones.
Yeah, this is, I guess, is a little bit of an old article. We'll just cover a few of these books for now. The first book is The War of the Roses by Alison Weir. Weir's overview of the struggle between the Plantagenets includes a vast cast of characters that bear similarities to Martin's. Like Robert Baratheon, Edward IV seized the throne from a real-life Mad King, Henry VI. The conniving Earl of Warwick, known as the Kingmaker, will remind some of the powerful Tywin Lannister. And like Joffrey, some doubted the legitimacy of Edward of Lancaster, who shared Joffrey's penchant for violence.
The Princes in the Tower, also by Alison Weir. When Edward IV died, his sons Edward V and Richard of Shrewsbury were mysteriously were mysteriously imprisoned in the Tower of London and eventually disappeared. Many suspect they were put to death by their uncle Richard III, who became king. Sound familiar? Many have compared the Princes in the Tower to the disappearance of Bran and Rickon, though in Game of Thrones, the boys actually escaped and 2 corpses burned beyond recognition were presented as their stand-ins.
Next is She-Wolves, The Women Who Ruled England Before Elizabeth, by Helen Castor. Castor profiles some of the lesser-known ladies of influence in English history. Like Yara Greyjoy, Empress Matilda was meant to take the throne when her father died, only to be pushed out by a male relative. And like Cersei Lannister, Margaret of Anjou exerted outsized influence for a medieval queen consort and fought vigorously for her son's right to the throne. And She-Wolves, just that title is remindful of the upcoming novella by George R.R. Martin, The She-Wolves of Winterfell.
Oh, yes. I can't wait for that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next we have The Life and Death of Anne Boleyn by Eric Ives. The controversial second wife of Henry VIII bears similarities to 2 Game of Thrones figures. With her political scheming and potential incest with her brother, it's easy to link her to Cersei Lannister. But her marriage, which caused huge political upheaval, also recalls the union of Talisa and Robb Stark, which had dark consequences for the family and the 7 kingdoms.
Very interesting.
Yes.
Hear that?
What was that?
Sir Matthew of House Repp. Cersei really is oblivious when dealing with the High Sparrow. As she tries to reduce the Tyrell influence in King's Landing, she may as well be talking about herself when she says, "There is a great sinner in our midst, shielded by golden power." Oh, just like you said, Lady Rachel.
Yes.
The montage of the Faith militant being armed and going into the city to wreak havoc mirrors what is going on in Meereen with the Sons of the Harpy. Good call. I don't know how I didn't even put that little connection together. That's great.
That's crazy.
Good call, yeah. The scene between Stannis and Shireen is so sweet that it just makes her ultimate fate so much more tragic.
Oh, man.
Isn't that the truth? Sir Barristan teaches Dany about another of her family she never knew. He told her about the viciousness of her father, the Mad King, but now about the gentleness of her brother Rhaegar. If only he wasn't taken out by an unruly mob of backstabbers in this episode, he would have continued to be such good counsel for her.
Great feedback, Sir Matthew.
Yes, always great to hear from your brother.
Lord Axel of House Eriksson. Say what you will, but the Sons of the Harpy look pretty cool. Intimidating for sure, but cool. I have to agree. Those masks are awesome.
Tight.
And they should totally be expected since Daenerys completely overturned the old social order in like one day and treated some of the masters like his star's father unjustly. Absolutely.
Yep. Blowback.
Something else that shouldn't come as a surprise is the rise of the faith militant, with all the rape, prostitution, murders of septons and septas, more of that in the books,
Way
plus
more.
all the other horrors of the war. It isn't surprising to see disenfranchised and delusioned young men getting together like that. It happened numerous times in real history. I really like the montage when they go on a rampage and smash everything up. Smiley face.
Yep. Good to hear from you, Lord Axel.
Yeah, thanks for the feedback.
Totally. Lady Lucy of House Jane. I just noticed that Winterfell is rebuilt on the map with the Bolton sigil, which made me rage. Have we ever seen Jaime drink? It occurred to me in the scene with him and Bronn on the boat that we haven't. Doesn't mean anything, just that we see everyone else drinking a lot. Well, that is true. Mace is such a dick. I'm almost glad he blows up in the sept. Tommen is so dull and thick. I know he's young, but still. I was confused about the Kingsguard. They seemed really eager to fight the Faith militant on the steps, but when they were wrecking everything earlier on in the marketplace, they turned away. Or was it the City Watch? That was the City Watch, I think. And what the fuck did Cersei think would happen with the Faith militant? She's so fucking arrogant to think she can control every little thing. I cannot wait for her in the cell and her walk of shame. The scene with Stannis and Shireen was heartbreaking. I don't believe he knew what Melisandre was planning at this point. He doesn't seem to have the guile to be so two-faced. He's far too upfront. He meant what he said to Shireen, and I don't think he would have been able to put so much feeling into it if he knew he was going to burn her alive soon. And I loved Bronn's fake names. I used to call myself Mary if a bloke chatted me up that I didn't like, with a laughing face. Did you get the impression that Hisdar was trying to keep Dany and Daario occupied with his harping, get it, on about the fighting pits? Did he want to make sure that Daario wasn't able to help with the defense against the Harpies? Oh, and my favorite scene by far is Tyrion annoying the shit out of Jorah so that he takes his gag out. It reminded me of the scene in Ghost where Patrick Swayze sings to Whoopi Goldberg until she agrees to help him. Thank you so much for writing in, Lady Lucy. Always a pleasure to hear from you. Lady Hannah of House Kindler. Hello, Duncan and Rachel. Thanks for analyzing all these episodes for us. One thought again for Season 5, Episode 3. I started reading Fire and Blood. It's awesome, read it. And I wondered about Margaery, who is married now for the 3rd time. In the Targaryen book, the queens whose husbands die and become a widow several times are seen sometimes as being evil witches or cursed or something. So what about Margaery? She's been married to Renly, who died. She's been married to Joffrey, who died. And now she is married again, but no one raises any questions. Frohe Weihnachten. Merry Christmas. Hannah Kindler. Merry Christmas to you as well, Hannah. And the frohes neues Jahr. Happy New Year.
Hello, Duncan and Rachel. It's Zach again with feedback for Sons of the Harpy. Man, this was such a good episode. Right from the beginning, I thought it was really funny how Jorah Grand Theft Auto's that guy and takes his boat. It's like, man, just punches him right in the face. I mean, I guess he did throw him a couple of coins there, but man, just knocks him out and takes his ride. Man, that's not cool, Jorah. Not cool. It was a good conversation between Bronn and Jaime on the boat to Dorne. And I love how Bronn questions Jaime when he calls Myrcella your niece. And Jaime gives him that eat shit and die look. I'm really, at this point in the story, I'm wondering how Jaime really feels about Tyrion. If he's really that upset with him. I mean, I don't know. I don't feel like Jaime really loved Tywin, and I think he is mad at Tyrion for killing him because of the situation it puts their whole family in. But when he says, if I ever see him, I'll split him in two, then I'll give him your regards. I don't know if he's overstating how much he hates Tyrion right now. If he's trying to oversell it for Bronn, or if that's really where he's at this point. I guess that's really where he's at, because that's put the whole family, spun into chaos. Mace Tyrell, Lady Rachel says it every time. He's such a boob, and he really is. He's just a boob. That's the best way to describe him. When he talks about the House Tyrell fronting the crown some money, and then they'll pay it back in time, and he tries to make a joke about, and if they don't, I'll have words with my daughter. And he tries, it's like a dad joke. He laughs at his own joke, and everybody else just sits there totally straight-faced. It's pretty funny. Of course, Cersei sends him away so she can unleash the Faith Militant, and they can take Loras, which is ultimately it's a strike at Marjorie. But I love how after Pycelle says the small council's growing smaller and smaller, Cersei, at this point in the books, she basically is totally fed up and done with Pycelle, and thinks he's definitely outlived his usefulness. I love when she says, the small council's not small enough. And man, Pycelle the camera lingers on him after that line for a minute, and he looks so butthurt and angry about how he's been treated. I mean, he hasn't been treated bad, but he's pretty scummy too. I was listening to something, I can't remember, about how somebody was wondering the possibility of Stannis knowing Jon Snow's true parentage, or at least maybe having some clue. And there was a line in this episode that, kind of shows that he might have some inkling about it, because Selyse was talking about how he was born of some tavern slut, and Stannis says, perhaps, but that wasn't Ned Stark's way. So, I don't know. I mean, it could be just a passing line because he knew how honorable Ned Stark was. But I don't know. He obviously sees something in Jon, but ultimately he just wants to use Jon to win the North. Damn you, Selyse. Damn you, Melisandre. I hate you so much. Talking about Shireen's king's blood. Oh, God. Oh, you people. Sick. Man, when Melisandre comes in there trying to put the moves on Jon, talking about no magic, just life. It's like, no, Jon, it is magic. She's old. She's so old. Man, she is. Ooh. Melisandre's got some moves. And she is creepy. God, man, she's creepy as fuck. Yep. Turning around at the door saying, you know nothing, Jon Snow. Like, man, don't be using Ygritte's line. That's not cool. I can't take that scene with Shireen and Stannis and him telling the story of her getting grayscale and then getting cured and how he told everybody to go to hell. God, I can't deal. Cannot deal with this Shireen stuff. Jeez Louise. That was a good conversation between Sansa and Littlefinger down in the crypts of Winterfell. He's telling her that he's going to leave, and I love the quote that he tells her, you've learned to maneuver from the very best. And she really has. Littlefinger, I think all along, even at the very end, he underestimates how much Sansa has learned from him and from Cersei, the time that she spent with him. But Littlefinger was right. She did learn to maneuver from the very best. Look out, bitch. Littlefinger. She's coming for you. Everyone loves to hate the Dornish storyline, and obviously, it's not the best, but this little fight that Jaime and Bronn get into, I mean, that's a good little scuffle. I mean, it's nothing fancy, just a good 2-on-4 fight, and of course, the workloads split unevenly due to Jaime's handicap, but I thought that was pretty cool how that guy's sword got stuck in Jaime's hand, and Jaime was able to get the upper hand on the one guy that he did fight. But that was a pretty good little scrap. There's obviously more to the Dornish storyline than that, but I liked it. Man, that was a brutal attack, coordinated attack in multiple places in the city by the Sons of the Harpy. Damn those guys, man. Damn them to hell.
Agreed.
Great fighting by Grey Worm, man. He took down a bunch of those sons of bitches. But, man, then when Barristan shows up and spears that one guy to kind of make his entrance into that little place where Grey Worm was fighting. I was like, oh yeah, it's Batman. Batman is here. Man, that was a good fight. I wish it would have been more. We finally got to see Barristan Selmy fight, and he fought great, fought valiantly with lots of skill, but a little bit longer action scene with Batman. Barristan Batman would have been great, but what we got was pretty great in and of itself. That's it. That's all I got for Sons of the Harpy. Y'all keep up the great work.
Awesome feedback, Zach. We always love hearing from you.
Totally, brother. Thank you for sending your thoughts. All right, that's our show, episode 86. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yes, thank you so much, and hope everybody enjoys their holiday celebrations over the next few days.
Oh yeah, this is probably the last episode that's going to come out before
I would
Christmas,
think so.
huh?
I know we're recording before that, but I'm sure you probably won't get around to dropping that one before Christmas. So, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate. We love all of you.
Yes, thank you so much for listening. We hope you guys have a wonderful Westerosi Christmas.
With no marriage or celebratory deaths, okay? Just like keep it cool, people.
Yeah. And if you're still doing any late holiday shopping, feel free to go to gameofmicrophones.com and click on our link to Amazon. As an Amazon associate, we earn from qualifying purchases. If you'd like to donate or subscribe to support us, you can go to paypal.me/GOMpodcast and patreon.com/GOMpodcast to donate an amount of your choosing. And there's links to both of those at gameofmicrophones.com.
Any contribution you make helps, and you can help secure the continued existence of Game of Microphones through the long night and beyond.
And beyond. Yeah, and into the next long night when the spin-off starts.
As of the spin-off.
Yeah, totally. We'd like to thank our patrons, Sir Matthew of House Repp, Lady Lucy of House Roberts, Lady Candace of House Tews, Lord Jeff of House Allen, Sirenicide, and Luke, the Low Duke. We love you guys and appreciate your patronage. Hope you guys have a great Christmas.
Yes, thank you guys so much. We love you.
Mm-hmm. And we also want to give a huge thanks to Lady Lisa of House Sky, Pyromancer. She's been critical, essential personnel behind the scenes working to get gameofmicrophones.com up and running. And go check it out, guys. It's pretty freaking epic. Yeah, it's a pretty cool site. Lots of neat animations with like ravens flying all around and
it's awesome.
Swords stabbing things.
She's so freaking talented. Can I just have like an ounce of your talent, please? So I can do something cool. Like draw a picture.
Yeah, speaking of her talent, you guys should definitely check out her excellently illustrated children's book, The People You May See, available now on Amazon, highlighting her talent as an artist. World class.
For sure.
Next episode, we'll be covering Season 5, Episode 5, Kill the Boy. Give it a watch and send us your thoughts. We'd love to read them on air.
Yes, please send in your Ravens calls. We love reading them.
If you'd like to call, you can always call us at 813-JOFFREY. That's 813-563-3739.
If you would like to write in, you can email us at ravens@gameofmicrophones.com.
Check out our Facebook page at facebook.com/GOMpodcast and give us a like and rating if you don't mind. That'd be great. And while you're at it, you might as well give us a review on iTunes too. Help bump us back up into the search results, hopefully. And we actually have gotten a few nice reviews pretty recently, so I think we're going to read them on the next podcast and give a shout out to those people.
Yes, thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Imp slap. You can also listen to Game of Microphones on YouTube, BitChute, and Steemit. Just search for Game of Microphones to find our channel. We can't create a custom URL on YouTube until we have 100 subscribers, so please subscribe as well. Likes, comments, and shares are also greatly appreciated.
We're also on Twitter, Instagram, Gab, and Minds at GOM Podcast.
And we're on Tumblr too, at Game of Microphones.
All right, that's our show.
Thanks for listening.
I can't.
Why?
I swore a vow. I loved another.
The dead don't need lovers, only the living.
I know. But I still love her.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
We need her blood, you know?
We're gonna murder her,
It's
like, in an
great.
episode or two from now.
She runs off like Napoleon Dynamite, like shuffles off screen hilariously.
I thought that was great cinematography. Lord Smallwood.
That's an unfortunate name, Smallwood.
Oh my god, I didn't even pick that up.
Lord Wibbly.
More than Lord Wibbly. Your perfect tits are a lie.
It's another clue that there's more going on than meets the eye with Jon Snow. Transformers! He pulled off his helm and all the ladies started giggling.
Ovaries swelled across the land.
Yeah. Exactly.
That was my number 5 and my number 1, and your number 5.
Oh shit, it's happening to me now, you know? But first, Jamie says, we need to bury these bodies.
Okay, so we were talking about Tyne's boobies.
Yes. Yeah.
Boobies. Oh, I'm so sad.
Yeah, it's sad. It's her last opportunity to get to know Rhaegar a little better until she gets the opportunity to meet his son.
Where they just go to town on each other.
And I'm like, fuck, Barristan is so goddamn cool.
Batman. Na 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 na.
Barristan. It's his total derailment from his otherwise generally righteous path, you know,
Yeah.
aside from the shadow demon, the kinslaying and whatnot.
And he's like, oh, what's touching me?
And what kind of slap is it?
Imp slap.
Oh. Slaps the shit out of him.
I'll set him free for you.
Yeah, exactly. That was great. That's a good impression there. Such a manipulating bitch.
I know.
Screw
She's
you,
such a bitch.
Cersei. Like, goddamn. This will not stand. It's like, you did it.
She goes, well, you're the master of corn. How... corn.
Got bigger chunks of corn in my crap. And he's like, ooh, my own Kingsguard. I'm like, ooh.
Safe travels, Lord Tyrell.
And he finishes the guy off and passes his sword to somebody. Did you notice that? He was like, ah, like,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Just, and the twice, yeah.